Do 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 do. Dooby dooby doo. All right. Welcome back, guys. Happy Thursday. I am back from break. And I missed you guys. We have so much to get into tonight. I did have a good time. I know many people reached out, had a lot of fun. It's always a fun time, again, when you're hanging out with like family and friends and stuff like that. And you just have like a whole like week to just decompress and just have a good time. So one of the things I will say, many of you were asking like where I went. Like I was in DC, in the DC area. I do have family like in the DMV area, and DC kind of is a place that's kind of central for us to kind of like meet in the middle. And one of the things I will say is like every time I go to DC, I feel like I'm entering another world because it's just different there. It's very different. Everything is political. Everyone I meet or know that lives there works for the government in some way, shape, or form, whether they worked for the VA or, a lot of us, when we were graduating undergrad, a lot of us were able to get those types of jobs, those entry-level jobs in DC, and you kind of work your way up and you get different like pay grades along the way. So a lot of the people that I know, like they do that, like they work for, and it's all you hear about when you're there. And it's different, like living in other cities. Like when you live in New York, everybody doesn't work for the government. Like when you live in Boston, everybody doesn't work for the government or the state or anything like that. So it is a different place. It's a different place. First thing I saw, like when we got off the train, the first thing I saw was this big giant poster of Donald Trump. And I was just like, oh boy, like, you know what I mean? But I'm back. I had fun. DC does have a lot of free activities. So if you've never been to DC and you don't want to spend a lot of money, it is a good place to go to because they have a lot of free activities. Most of the museums are free. I like going to museums. The zoo is also free. So I also went to the zoo. So that is one thing I will say. They do have a lot of free things that you can do there, especially if you're bringing kids too. So I will say that. But we had a lot of fun. And now I am back. So welcome to Sab's podcast. If you are new, I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. We have so much to get into. A lot happened while I was gone. I was able to cover some of those topics. I hope you guys got to see the videos that I put out while I was gone. I knew that would happen too. As soon as I left, like something would break and it would be a like crazy story. But a lot to get into tonight. And as we get into the stories tonight, I do want you to think about the theme. The theme tonight is It's Not Over. And I want you to put that in a positive perspective, not in a negative perspective. One of the things I noticed with these stories tonight is that the American people are tired. The American people are not giving up. They are fighting back in many ways. And that's what I want you to take away from tonight's stories. I think a lot of things are being exposed and people have just kind of had it, you know, to be honest with you. So yeah, so much to get into tonight. Let's go ahead and give a couple shout outs in the chat. I don't want to keep you guys too long. One thing I did bring back with me was a cold. So if my voice sounds kind of muffled, that's why. I don't know why this happens sometimes when I travel, but I did come back with a cold. And then on top of that, I went to the gym today. I probably shouldn't have done that, but I went to the gym to do upper body and I felt great afterwards. I was like, yeah, give me that newfound energy. And I'm kind of regretting it a little bit now, but here we go, folks. Here we go. Shout out to JB says, good evening, everyone. Kevin O'Leary needs to concern himself with his home country instead of building data centers in ours. Harming us like this just proves what so many are rejecting capitalism now. Oh, we have a lot to say about Kevin, JB. Shout out to Ellen sends love. Greetings, Scott. Sabby, please use your platform to promote donation for Thomas Massey. He is not about left or right. He is about all Americans. Without him in Congress, America is done. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about him tonight. I did reach out to his team a while back. I guess I can reach out again. But thank you, Scott. Thank you, Rich. That's $1.2 billion per day on average. That's nearly 3 times the amount given by the Pentagon's official estimate. Thank you for that. Shout out to Blockbuster says, hi. Greetings, Tyrone. South Carolina present and accounted for. B1 FBA native, FBA Black Native USA. America First Freedman. What is going on, Tyrone? What is up? Shout out to New York Varsity says Butch Ware has been taken off the ballot. RE 2019 tax return discrepancy. By the time his lawyers fix this in court, they would have ran out his clock. And that's the plan, basically. We're trying to get Butch to come back on. Thank you, Cloudness. Welcome back, Sabby. Salute, fam. We missed you. But anyways, big up B1 fam. All right. Shout out to Moo Moo says, happy Thursday. And greetings, Silver Surfer says, peace, love, Sabby. All right. I don't want to spend too much time on comments because we do have a lot to get into tonight. So let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, fam. Keeping the lights on around me. If you are interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories here. We have the ultimate, the Sabinators. They're Sabsters. They're pretty cool. And let's not forget about those Sabbies because they're not too shabby. You know they're not too shabby. And of course, last but definitely not least, we have the members. All of their names are listed here, ladies and gents. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen throughout the live stream. I want to give a shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Lana Aziz, Mark P. Thaku. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Mark P. Thaku, Barbara K., and Dimples. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. And welcome to the Sabby gang. Welcome. Welcome back. In the words of Welcome Back, Carter. All right, ladies and gents, let's see what we are discussing tonight. Let's go ahead and take a look at that thumbnail for you folks. Like I said, a lot has happened, folks. Tonight, we are discussing Iran has video confirmation that they hit a U.S. drone. So this was breaking news for Thursday. We're going to get into all of that. Right now, as we speak, the U.S. and Iran, they are trading strikes back and forth in the Strait of Hormuz right now. Donald Trump is claiming that it's a love tap and that is not restarting the war. Whatever. Psych. It's crazy. We're also discussing what happened with Saudi Arabia. It turns out that Saudi Arabia was involved in making Donald Trump suspend his project, but only for a limited time, because now they are reversing that. They are reversing that. So don't get too excited about Saudi Arabia, but we'll get into all of that that's unfolding at the Strait of Hormuz. We're also going to discuss, and I've been wanting to talk about this for about a week. We're going to do a deep dive into this, how Michael Jackson was betrayed. And this involves Oprah Winfrey. I believe that Oprah Winfrey betrayed Michael Jackson, and I'm going to get into that tonight. And this is also, of course, connected to the recent success of the Michael movie, but that Michael Jackson is still breaking records right now, even though he is no longer with us because of this movie. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Kevin O'Leary. You probably know this guy from Shark Tank. He is in hot water right now with residents in Utah for trying to build this massive data center. And we're going to break down like how these data centers are impacting lower income communities, because they're not building these data centers in rich, wealthy communities, right? So Kevin, not happy. We're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Thomas Massey and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think we're going to compare them side by side tonight, because we're going to talk about the funding that is happening in the GOP primaries. For those who are not aware, Vivek Ramaswamy just won the Republican primary for the gubernatorial race in Ohio. And we're going to get into his money. And I'm going to get into what Thomas Massey just said recently about his race and the money situation, because we got to prove a point here. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard this, a rapper, organizer, activist, Killer Mike is being shamed by a lot of people because of a video that he made about people registering to vote. And people are not happy with Killer Mike because they said that this is all his fault. This is all his fault, what happened with the Voting Rights Act. Imagine blaming one person. I told you guys what I said before and how I feel about people blaming voters instead of the politicians not giving to the demands. So you guys, I think you know where I'm going to go with this one, right? And last but not least, we have a bonus story. Donald Trump, and this one kind of snuck by. Donald Trump just announced that he is implementing this counterterrorism plan right here in the United States, and it is going to impact Americans, in particular, the left. Those are the exact words that he uses in this plan that he just announced. So everybody get ready, because it's coming. It is coming. So I had a fear about this. If you haven't done so, ladies and gents, please do me a solid and smash that like button. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. So again, bear with me, ladies and gents. I told you I brought back a cold, but we'll get through it tonight. So the theme again is it's not over. It's not over. Let's get into the first story here. We got to get into what happened in Utah with this massive data center that is supposed to be built by Kevin O'Leary. If you're not familiar with Kevin O'Leary, he is the guy that you probably have seen on the show Shark Tank. Kevin O'Leary is a Canadian businessman. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's a Canadian businessman, but he's not trying to build data centers in his home country. He's trying to build them right here. Right here. Yes, yes, yes. So this is Kevin O'Leary, very, very wealthy guy here. It was just recently announced that he is trying to build this massive data center in Utah, and the people in Utah are 100% against it. Now, this data center is supposed to expand over 40,000 acres. It would be 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. So I want you to hear what some of the residents said in Utah.
False. All of this is false. Then why won't they let people talk? Why won't they let us ask questions? It's false. This is not real information. And we sit here like it's okay. It's a charade. It's a charade. It's false.
Yeah, so needless to say, the residents in Utah do not want this data center built. Now, if you pay attention to where they're building these data centers, they're predominantly in lower income areas. Like they're not trying to build a data center in Beverly Hills. Like, you know what I mean? So why does that matter? Well, it's a drain on resources. Data centers require a lot of water because of the cooling process to keep these data centers running. So it's using massive amounts of water. There's also a pollution aspect, which I'm going to show you as well. Like ultimately, it makes things more difficult for people who live in that area when something like that is being built. Now, shout out to Power to the People. He shared this as well. The largest data center in the world was just approved in Utah. So the people don't want it. But the county commission voted for the data center despite the massive resistance from residents, and one commissioner mocked the residents. So I want you to hear what the commissioners said.
For hell's sakes, grow up. Beyond a joke. Be quiet, Can you be quiet and let our citizens hear what needs to be said, please?
We have gotten to the point in this country where data centers are more important than the American people. This isn't just about AI anymore. This is going further than that. And it's concerning to me, and it should be concerning to all of you as well. Measured Man brings up a good point. This is why they are letting farmers go bankrupt to snatch up the land and build more and control infrastructure. Now, people are asking, a lot about data centers. I mean, unfortunately, because of the technology that we do have to have data centers for these, these apps and everything to run and function. The problem is we don't need as many as they're trying to build. It doesn't need to take up as much space as they're trying to have it take up. And ultimately, again, look at where they're putting them. They're putting them in the lower income neighborhoods because they say, they're peasants. Do you guys think that if they tried to put a data center in Beverly Hills, do you think the residents of Beverly Hills would go for this? No. Difference is people in Beverly Hills have the money to stop it. The people in lower income neighborhoods don't have the money to stop it. And they know that. That's why they put them there. That's why they're there. But people ask about that, about the data centers. It's like all these things that we use, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, whether it's, what's the other one? X, all these different things that we use, even if you put those aside, like everything is so data driven now. That's what those data centers are supposed to be used for. Now, there's other things that go along with this as well. Like I told you before, like with surveillance, just to show you how large this is going to be. The world's largest data center in Box Elder County, Utah. Look at this. This is how much land they want to use for a data center. Look at that. That is massive, 62 square miles. Just to give you a reference, data center reference, 62 square miles, Salt Lake City, Utah. So you see how much land that is going to take up? But when you ask them to build more housing, they tell you that we don't have enough land. No, this is what they want the land for the data centers. Because we are getting to the point where data is going to be more important than human beings. This is what I've been trying to warn people about. It's not just about AI. AI is one part of it, but data is going to be more important. And that's why we cannot stop talking about this. Now, Kevin O'Leary did respond. He said that opponents of his Utah data center are professional protesters, and some are powered by AI, he says. This guy, again, Kevin O'Leary doesn't seem to be trying to build any data centers in his homeland of Canada, but he's doing it right here in Utah. This is why I'm telling you guys right now, a lot of these things that are happening that are an assault on the working class, it doesn't really matter if you're on the left or the right. What it does matter is if you have the money to stop it. And those of us who are at the bottom, which are most of us don't, not individually, but if we came together as a collective, we could. And that's what they're afraid of. The Kevin O'Learys, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, they are afraid of us coming together and fighting back against people like them. But it's not just Utah, because I want to show you what is happening in Georgia. Now, this is a data center that Mark Zuckerberg built in Georgia. Watch what this woman shows you, how it is impacting her family.
This is our cold water pressure in the kitchen. This is where I fill up water for storage. Those are the things we have to fill up to flush the toilets.
So you can see the sediment from the data center. Wow, and that's just from the water coming out of your faucet.
Yeah. And this is what's in all the pipes.
Just the well itself is probably 20,000, and that's not counting any of the
All the
faucets.
replacement
Yeah.
of the fixtures and
That's
faucets
just
and
the way.
toilets and the lines that come under.
See how the water is barely like coming out of the faucet? That's because the data center is using so much of the water. So that's all that they have left. And then the water that they're receiving isn't even safe. You saw the residue that's coming from the water.
Underneath the house. It's overwhelming because you really feel like you are up against this huge wall that you can't penetrate. There's nothing that you can do, and they don't care.
I'm here in Mansfield, Georgia, driving by Meta's new 2 million square foot data center facility. Facilities like this are being used to power things like ChatGPT and other AI tools that are becoming integrated into our daily life.
Data centers going to be a very hot item.
This entire supercomputer.
This is why I've been trying to tell people stop using ChatGPT. But it's not just that one. Like, how many other things are they going to use? But ChatGPT is one of them. Same thing with Gemini. This is why people have been sounding the alarm and telling people stop using these AI apps.
Is built to power Grok.
We see data centers as the most exciting asset class.
Meta is building a 2 gigawatt plus data center that is so large it would cover a significant part of Manhattan.
But data centers come with big costs, from light and noise pollution to the environmental impacts to the potential rising costs of energy bills. These facilities put extraordinary demand on the power grid and require entirely new infrastructure.
Oh my God. They should be responsible for that, not us.
Search the internet for profits that Meta has made, Amazon, Microsoft. They can afford to pay for their own generation.
We came to Georgia to ask two questions. What's the true cost of the AI revolution, and who should be paying for it? Your house is here, and the data center's right there.
It's less than 400 yards.
Beverly and Jeff Morris bought their home an hour's drive from downtown Atlanta in 2016, but their roots in the community run much deeper.
Being in the country has always just been my peace and my therapy. When we found this place, we decided that this was it. It was perfect.
I was actually raised probably 5 miles from here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is what we've been warning people about. Now that's Georgia. So it's not just Utah. And did you notice that? So that one was, implemented by Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is a Democrat. And the one in Utah was implemented by Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary is a Republican. So this spans both parties. It's really about top, bottom. And they will continue to step on the little people if we allow them to do so. When we talk about Florida, I want to let you guys know even Byron Donalds is pushing for it right now. Yeah, Byron Donalds, who apparently is running for what, governor of Florida right now? He wants it too. Look.
I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is there are some of our more rural counties where if you talk to their local leaders, they do want to build a data center because they don't have much of a tax base today. And they're looking at it as a lifeline to keep their community afloat and to bring industry back to their community. So the data center concept is very detailed. I don't like how it's getting talked about because to me, it's not being talked about in detail, it's being talked about in hyperbole. And I think that when you're talking about a technology like this, you have to be very detailed about what makes sense. And I try to stay detailed here. Property taxes, I'm not saying that. But what I am.
Yeah, so for those of you in Florida, I mean, I'm just letting you know, Byron Donalds is totally okay with the data centers. A lot of them are getting on board. And then you'll even see where they're talking about the environmental pollution that is coming from data centers. Now, this is also Florida. So this guy here said Florida skies turned black. Data centers are poisoning us. Look at all of the, watch this. This is going right into the air. Watch. See all that black smoke going into the air? So that's pollution. And people will breathe it in. So the way I got to tell you, the way these politicians have been fighting for these data centers, I wish they fought for the people like that. Because they don't. So the data centers and AI is more important than us. And that's a problem. But here's the thing. It's not over. There was another video I showed a couple of weeks ago of people who protested outside a data center that was about to be built, and they actually ended up sending them home. They didn't end up building it. I think, again, this is where we as the people are going to have to come together and fight back against these things. I think that you should have a say over whether or not these types of businesses are brought into your community. Otherwise, I mean, what's the point of being a resident if you really can't say anything about where you reside? So stay tuned for this, guys. Like, they're going to take up the land. They don't care if the farms fail, because if the farms fail, Measured Man was right. If the farms fail, they'll buy up that land very cheaply because it won't be profitable anymore, and they can use it to build the data centers. So at the end of the day, they're not looking out for us. Also, the big picture is corruption, and that's what you always have to get back to. They're able to do this because people are bought off, because they have the money to buy off these people. Some of these mayors, some of these governors, some of these people are bought off, and they're able to do that. We don't have a government that operates on behalf of the people, that actually elects these politicians in office. We have a government that operates on behalf of big money interests, corporations, and the military industrial complex. And that's what it comes down to. It's not over as long as we stick together and fight back. And that's the important part I think people need to take home. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. All right. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. Good to have you back. Yellow is so you. Oh, thank you. I hope the yellow would help the cold a little bit and cheer me up. Thank you, Angry Pole, for gifting one Sabby Sabs membership. Thank you, Sneaker Dad. Keep up the good work. Thanks. Just to clarify, look up data center infrasound. It is inaudible sonic weaponry. People are getting sick. Ben Jordan has a good video. I'll have to check that one out. Thank you, Angry Pole. Data centers, Palantir, and Opus DI are all connected. Thank you, Imberg. Might be illegal to build in Canada, so Kevin is building it here. Crazy, isn't it? Funny how that happens. JB says, this is what capitalists do, privatize the gains and socialize the losses. That's right. That's right. And Crystal says they are building 3 more around Augusta, Georgia. So everyone pay attention. Let's get that Rumble rant, and then we'll keep it moving and grooving. All right. Thank you, Angry Pro, for the Rumble rant. Sabby, PSA. While looking for a service to buy a site domain, I found that Cloudflare supports the NED, ADL, Freedom House, the Galileo Project, CIA. It also serves the FBI, U.S. Department of State. Yeah, a lot of big tech is supporting one of those entities. I've noticed that. And thank you for this one. Is there a way to contact and send a physical letter to JB? It would be best to ask JB, who is in the chat here, I believe. Thank you for this one. Sabby, did the MJ movie cover how he didn't have a childhood and tried to make up for it as an adult, as well as how he tried to protect children from the Epstein class? So I don't want to give too many spoilers away. But there's going to be a part 2, so it doesn't cover his whole life. And thank you for this one. The guillotines are starving for a revolution. All right, let's keep it moving and grooving. If you haven't done so, smash that like button. Thank you. And let's get to the next story here, ladies and gents. So what I thought would happen, and I was afraid of happening, looks like it is now happening. Donald Trump just made the announcement recently, and everyone needs to pay attention to this. America is our homeland and it will be protected. The 2026 Counterterrorism Report prioritizes eliminating cartel networks, targeting foreign terrorist organizations, cracking down on domestic extremist groups like Antifa. Peace through strength. The part that you need to focus on is this one, because this isn't just about Antifa. This is the new announcement that came from the White House. They have now announced their United States counterterrorism strategy for 2026. And there is one part in particular that we all need to pay attention to, and that's this one. Let's go to page 6. The threat. See, remember when I was telling you about Palantir? So let's see who Donald Trump says the threat is. Funny, he mentions we must protect our nation from human trafficking and doesn't even, again, no accountability for Epstein and doesn't want to release all the Epstein files. Hilarious. Listen to this. Under the leadership of President Trump, America is again the world's most powerful nation with the largest economy in history, the most advanced technologies, and the bravest and most skilled war fighters the world has ever seen. Imagine bragging about war fighters during a time when more Americans are anti-war. This newfound strength has been amply demonstrated by historic operations such as neutralization of the Iranian nuclear threat under Operation Midnight Hammer and Operation Epic Fury, and the arrest and rendition of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro under Operation Absolute Resolve. But the terrorist threat has changed. Pay attention, guys. We face new categories and combinations of violent actors that make the established ways of doing counterterrorism insufficient or obsolete. We face a multiplicity of deadly threats from terror groups and non-state actors, often secretly supported by governments who wish to undermine us. And this is the part I want to highlight here. Currently, we face 3 major type of terror groups. Let me put this here. Actually, these 2. Narco terrorists and transnational gangs, right? So, of course, they're talking about cartel here. Look at this, the second one. Legacy Islamist terrorist. And third, violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. Did you guys hear what I just said? Anarchists and anti-fascists. Being anti-fascist isn't a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. You should not support fascism. So let me tell you what I think. Let's go to the second one first. Legacy Islamist terrorists. This can span to different organizations because let me tell you, they can say those are the pro-Palestinian protesters. They can start going after groups like Answer Coalition, which organizes a lot of these massive protests that we see across the United States. They can go after them and they can say that they're Islamist terrorists or they're supporting Islamist terrorists. This is why the framing is very important. If you notice, Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and alike, if you notice, they keep referring to the pro-Palestinian protesters as anti-Israel or pro-Hamas. And they've been doing that intentionally. They're saying that they're pro-Hamas so that they can later come after them with something like this. Everybody needs to pay attention, because this is what I was afraid was going to happen. So yes, that would include groups like Answer Coalition. They can come after them. Think about all the protests, not just for pro-Palestine protests, but also the no war with Iran protests. If they wanted to, and I mean, you know, they got Palantir and almost all these branches of government now, they can track everyone's cell phone who was at those protests and deem them domestic terrorists and come after them. This is also why you need to be against massive state surveillance. They can track everything, especially if you have a smartphone. I don't care what you think. If you think that just because you turn off your location, that doesn't mean anything. They can still track you. And then there's cookies on all of these websites that you may visit. Let's get to the next part. Violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and anti-fascists. So notice it's left-wing. And I'm going to prove a point here, right? And then I'm going to tell you who I think they're going to go after. Let's prove a point. When it came to censorship, we noticed that both parties used it, but used it in different ways and used it against the other party. Under the Democratic Party, under the Biden administration, Biden used censorship to protect the Hunter Biden laptop story. We saw this through the Twitter files and more. And also to protect different rhetoric about the pandemic. And what I was warning people is it could come the other way too. Now that Trump is in office, we've seen censorship go in a different direction, right? Like Elon Musk bought X, took that over, and we've seen them deplatform and censor and suppress a number of pro-Palestinian voices. Anyone who's been critical of Israel, a lot of them have been suppressed. Some of these accounts have been outright removed because they support the Palestinian people. So that's what I was warning people about, the censorship. It happens on both sides. Now let's get to this point. The same way that Donald Trump is using this to go after what he calls the left-wing extremist groups, if the Democrats win in 2028, they can always flip it in the other direction. So people cheering this on under Trump, don't be surprised if it comes back over in your direction. And they could use this and they could say, we're going after these right-wing extremist groups. A lot of us that were on X, we saw this happen in real time when a lot of these people who they got back on there after Elon took over, the Nick Sortor, you know, a lot of these big right-wing accounts that were basically Trump surrogates under the Trump administration, they had a lot of free reign on Twitter during that time. And then when Jack was still in charge of X, he eventually suspended those accounts. When Elon Musk took over X, and of course, Elon supported the Trump administration, he brought those accounts back. So I've seen it happen back and forth. And then he decided to suppress the left-wing voices and get rid of some of those people, right? So let me tell you who I think they're going to go at. This is a big one. The left-wing extremists, he said, this includes anarchists and anti-fascists. And this is something I would really like to question Ro Khanna about when he voted for that legislation to condemn socialism. And I said something about that. This needs to be said because they can consider left-wing extremists Democratic Socialists of America. I don't consider them to be extremists, but they could. They could go after them. They could go after the Party for Socialism and Liberation, also known as PSL. They're anti-fascists. They're also anti-capitalists. And last but not least, they could go after Code Pink. Marco Rubio has already mentioned Code Pink multiple times publicly. That's who I think they're going to try to target. So, but don't sit back. If you're sitting back and you think you might be safe because you're like, well, I'm not a member of PSL or I'm not part of Answer Coalition and I'm not, in Code Pink. but you're a member of Democratic Socialists of America, I would not consider yourself to be safe either. He could come after you too. And then how far would this go? And a lot of people are not talking about this, but this is, I feel like it kind of snuck under the radar. He said, we can defeat every single one of these groups. You hear this? We can defeat every single one of these groups, but the threat is significant and pervasive. He's saying it's a threat. Imagine saying that when a lot of these people are fighting against war. But that's a problem. Imagine putting anti-fascists here. So he's outright telling you he's for fascism. This is a problem. So if you have not seen it, and Ken Klippenstein already wrote a Substack about this. You can find it on the White House website right here. It is the counterterrorism strategy. And that's how they're going to find a way to shut down those voices. And you'll see here, Ken Klippenstein talked about it earlier. He said the language is contained in the White House newly released National Counterterrorism Strategy. It is the first national strategy to be unveiled since 2021. The strategy identifies the left-wing, anti-fascist, anarchist, and radically pro-transgender ideologies as threats equivalent to jihadi groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and narco traffickers. Now, he's talked about this quite a bit. He was warning people about this as well. And he goes on to say that he's reported on this. There it is right there. That's what I was telling you guys. Counterterrorism itself is a propaganda term, sanitizing the actual practice pre-crime, which aims to build cases against people for what they might do, most ominously based on speech or beliefs. Remember when I told you that this whole thing with Palantir and this surveillance and them wanting to, watch what you're doing? And I said, careful, this could lead to Minority Report, the movie Minority Report, where people are arrested based on what it is predicted that they are going to do. Here we go. Because what they could do is they could target people that are a part of PSL or Code Pink or Answer Coalition or Democratic Socialists of America, and they could say, you are considered a threat, not because of what you have done, but because of what this data, this surveillance predicts that you would do. So because you are a part of this group and because you're fighting against the things you're fighting against, it is predicted that you will commit this said crime. And so we got to lock you up. That's essentially what this is. This counterterrorism document that just came from the White House is essentially a pre-crime plan. And now it's going to get to the point where people are going to start questioning, because what they really want you to do is they want you to disband. They don't want you to organize. They don't want you to work together. They want you to split apart. They want you to be afraid to do that. But here's the thing. I don't think people are going to stop doing what they're doing. I don't. I think that this is just going to embolden people more. And I think it's going to get to a point where you may have to lean on someone that you may have not wanted to lean on. You may have to get help from someone that may not align with you on every issue politically. But I think that's what is going to get to this point where people are going to be like, okay, this is ridiculous. And here's the thing, like I told you, if you think this will only be something that is implemented against the left, if the Democrats win in 2028, depending on who that is, Don't be surprised if they take this same strategy and turn it around and implement this towards those on the right. We've seen it done. We saw Joe Biden keep a lot of Donald Trump's policies. So be careful what you cheer for when it happens to the other side, because it could come right back around your way. But I don't think it's over. It's not over. I think that people are going to mobilize in ways that we've never seen before. I was watching this docuseries. I know you guys are like, I always watch docuseries. I was watching this docuseries and I saw like how people were organizing like in New York, you know, back in the 60s and the 70s, and all these people out in the streets. And this is before social media. And maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe like go back to the old way of doing things instead of trying to organize on social media where all these prying eyes can see everything, and you get infiltrated a lot easier that way. There's always infiltration, but social media online organizing makes it so much easier. But maybe you have to go back to the old way of doing things. And I think that's where we might be headed, because I don't see people taking this lightly. I don't. So if you didn't know about this, share this with your friends. Tell them what's going on, because they're trying to come for all of us. Let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gents. All right, all right. Thank you, Cubis. I got my tax return. You rule, Sabby. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you, Lizru. Wish I could give more. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kieran. Hey, Sabby. Thanks for the great content. Keep up the good work. And also, what's your favorite MJ song? I can never pick. People ask me this all the time because I have so many favorites. Maybe one day I'll narrow it down. Thank you, Angry Pro. I personally don't trust PSL and the Green Party. You're entitled to your opinion. Thank you. Anna says anarchism is not chaos. Anarchism is cooperative communities with no racism, no classism, and no sexism. Shout out to 25 Shiz for becoming a Sabby member. Let's give them a big whoop whoop. Butterfly. Hey, Sabby, I'm joining a bit late from DC in town for my daughter's graduation from Howard University. Well, welcome. All right. Yeah, DC was fun. It was fun, but it's also good to come back home. You know what I mean? Good to come back home. All right, ladies and gents, let's go ahead and get into the latest with Iran. Crazy things are going on here. So apparently, Donald Trump, when he suspended this new project in the Strait of Hormuz, he made it sound like, oh, we're just going to suspend it for right now, and we're like working on negotiations, which Iran is vehemently denying that is the case. It turns out that the reason why he decided to do that is because Saudi Arabia, and I think also Oman, they denied Donald Trump the ability to use their airspace. Of course, he didn't mention that, but it came out. Let's go ahead and get into it here. And we have some other updates with the Middle East as well.
President Donald Trump abruptly paused Project Freedom. Reports suggest Saudi Arabia refused to allow US aircraft involved in the operation to use its airspace. These developments come as Washington claims progress in talks with Tehran. According to reports, Saudi Arabia and several Gulf allies were caught off guard after Trump announced Project Freedom over the weekend. The operation was aimed to help commercial ships safely cross the Strait of Hormuz. And it came amid rising attacks and tensions linked to the ongoing US-Iran conflict.
So this is an important piece here, right? When Donald Trump decided to pull back, and this is after Iran did issue strikes towards the US warship, which of course CENTCOM denied for quite some time, but it happened. All of a sudden he decided to pull back and he said, we're going to suspend this operation at this point in time. But then it was announced by NBC News that the reason why he did that is because Saudi Arabia told Donald Trump that you could not use the airspace. So that's why that happened. Now, did they hold on to that? I would say no. Let's continue.
Arabia is said to have informed Washington that it would not allow American military aircraft supporting the operation to fly from Prince Sultan Air Base. Riyadh is also believed to have denied US aircraft permission to pass through Saudi airspace. Now, a phone call between Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman also failed to resolve the issue. The lack of regional airspace access reportedly forced Trump to pause Project Freedom 3 days after it began. By then, the US military had already deployed additional ships and surveillance assets in the Gulf. American officials also described the operation as separate from the broader bombing campaign known as Epic Fury.
Yeah, Millarvin said, this is the first I heard of this. Yeah, see, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this. And of course, the White House isn't going to tell you, but this is what happened. So that's why he decided to pause it. And I think this information being released is an embarrassment here for Donald Trump. It just makes him look some kind of way, right? It's like he's bragging about what he was able to do. Oh, look, all these great accomplishments. And then it's leaked. They're like, nah, man, Saudi Arabia told you couldn't use their airspace. Now, what does that really mean? Because what I feel that means is that you can't use our airspace because we're going to use this time right now to refuel or fuel up and get ready for what's coming. Because as it stands right now, the US and Iran are trading strikes back and forth with each other in the Strait of Hormuz right now. So we're going a little bit more here.
Well, as you know, President Trump has directed U.S. Central Command to restart the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz under the umbrella of Project Freedom. To be clear, this operation is separate and distinct from Operation Epic Fury.
While defending the operation earlier this week, US officials described Project Freedom as a limited mission focused on protecting commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
Project Freedom is defensive in nature, focused in scope, and temporary in duration, with one mission: protecting innocent commercial shipping from Iranian aggression. American forces won't need to enter Iranian waters or airspace. It's not necessary. We're not looking for a fight, but Iran also cannot be allowed to block innocent countries and their goods from an international waterway.
And
they can. They can. They actually can if you don't pay the toll. You know, if you don't pay the toll, they can actually do that.
Trump later said the pause was intended to give diplomacy a chance. Meanwhile, signs of diplomatic movements are emerging between Washington and Tehran, although Iranian officials have continued to publicly question reports suggesting the two sides are close to a breakthrough. Iran's parliamentary speaker, Mohammad Bakr Ghalibaf, mocked the narrative surrounding the negotiations in a post on social media, writing in English, "Operation Trust Me Bro failed. Now back to routine with Operation Focios."
They are trolling the U.S. hard. Yeah, so it was another operation that was failed by Donald Trump. And of course, he just is not going to admit that because it would make him look foolish, which he doesn't like to look that way. So he's just continuing to lie. And this was the reveal here. Again, like I said, it was NBC that dropped it. And they said that that U-turn that Donald Trump made was because Saudi Arabia would not allow them to use their airspace. Now, as it stands right now, they are still trying to, by they, I mean, the U.S. is still trying to, I guess, convince Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz to everyone. So I want to be very clear. The strait is not closed per se. It's just closed to those who are not willing to pay the toll. And of course, to those that are striking civilians and infrastructure in Iran. So of course, it's going to be closed to the U.S. Of course, it's going to be closed to like Israel, those other Gulf countries, which allow the U.S. to fire from their countries. So yes, Saudi Arabia, yes, the UAE, yes, Qatar, you are complicit when you allow military bases in your country and you allow them to fire from your country to hit Iran. That's the way that this works. But here's the thing. Now Saudi Arabia, this is laughable. Saudi Arabia now has decided to pivot. It's just like, here we go. Saudi Arabia and Kuwait have lifted the restrictions on the U.S. military use of their bases and airspace. The U.S. and Saudi officials say easing a hurdle that had tripped up President Trump's effort to move ships through the Strait of Hormuz. And this is from the Wall Street Journal, which is paywalled because they're greedy motherfuckers. But the reality is, this is Saudi Arabia. Everyone listen, because this is Saudi Arabia and Kuwait now trying to find a way to help the United States. So remember what Iran said. When these countries assist the U.S. in their attacks, they are fair game. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if we were playing basketball and someone gave me an assist. Assist is when you pass the ball to said person and that person makes the basket. So I'm being guarded. I get away from the person guarding me. And my other teammate, they're being guarded too. But they managed to get the ball to me and I shoot and score a basket. That's an assist. But before they assisted me, they also had the right to be guarded because they had the ball. So this is a similar situation here with Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. It's like, you guys can't get mad and say, we have nothing to do with this. Iran is being the bully. You know, I'm laughing my ass off. The fact that I sat up there and I heard like Marco Rubio of all people demand that the United Nations get involved and do something against Iran, putting out these attacks on these ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Now all of a sudden they care about the United Nations. The same UN that you said didn't matter and that you were ignoring when they said that Israel was committing genocide. Now all of a sudden they want the United Nations. So Saudi Arabia backtracking now as usual. So here we go. And you can see some of the comments. Here we go. Why did they change their minds so quickly? Those bases will be dust when the war reignites, and their respected regimes better run for the hills. I mean, everybody knows what's going on here. Then we fast forward to Thursday. And this is from Iran Media, a news agency here. So this is Fars News Agency. They started announcing that there were sounds of several explosions near Bandar Abbas. Moments ago, people in Bandar Abbas heard several sounds resembling explosions in the vicinity of the city. The origin and exact location of these sounds is still not known at that time. And Fars follow-ups to determine the details of the incident are ongoing. Further updates will be announced. Let's go ahead and go to part 2 of Type BC here, Eric. So come Thursday, there are explosion sounds and people are trying to figure out, okay, where is it coming from? Is this the US attacking Iran? Is it Iran? Like, where is it coming from? Well, if you come in here, you'll see apparently there was heavy air defense activity around Tehran. That was Thursday. U.S. official had confirmed airstrikes on Kesheev Island and Bandar Abbas, but says the U.S. is not restarting the war. So you can see it here. Yeah. So the defensive strikes on Kesheev Island and Bandar, right? So if Iran is using their defense, that would mean that Iran is under attack. So who would be doing that? Well, let's get to this part here. It's wild and crazy, fam. This is from Jennifer Griffin. A lot of people are making fun of this post from her, by the way. She is a chief national security correspondent for Fox News. Jennifer Griffin, Fox News, they said the U.S. military just carried out strikes on Iran's Kesheev port and Bandar Abbas. Senior U.S. official tells me, but this is not a restarting of the war. More. So let's pause here for a second. The United States military just carried out strikes on Iran's Kesheev port and Bandar Abbas. And Fox News is telling everyone that this is not a restart of the war. Donald Trump went on to say that it was a love tap. Love ya. This is where we're at now. The media can't do the right thing. They're still running cover for the president of the United States. But the U.S. is striking Iran. That's what's happening right now. The comments. Professor Zinkus, how is it? Oh, never mind. So by your logic, if Iran bombed a port in the U.S., it would not count as a breach of the ceasefire agreement? Remember I told you the ceasefire isn't even real? Strait of Hormuz daily traffic reminder. The Strait of Hormuz was completely open to all of the world's ships before February 28. Yes. Yes. So this is where we're at now, folks. This is where we're at. And I will check also, because I know this was pretty much breaking at this point in time. Let me see if they gave just a quick update on that. Not just yet. Okay. So you see what I'm saying, right? Okay. Now we got this situation, which for whatever reason, again, the U.S. doesn't want to admit this. Iran shot down a U.S. drone over the Strait of Hormuz. Again, also on Thursday, all this stuff happened. Iran released a video to show the U.S. drone was shot down over Hormuz. So they actually had video footage, which I'll show you. Iranian media has released video perpetuating to show the wreckage of the U.S. reconnaissance drone that was allegedly shot down by Iran's armed forces over the Strait of Hormuz. So they actually have a video. I have a better video to show. They actually had a video of this happening, and CENTCOM denies it. The U.S. government still denies it. So we'll go to that video. Let me go back here because this was live at the time. She was talking about India. Let's see if we can go forward. Sorry about this, guys. It's just that it was live at the time, but she had a video, and if I don't find, oh, here we go. Yeah, because she had the actual video. So let's go here.
Did Saudi anger force Trump to reopen the Strait of Hormuz? Reports suggest it may have. And going by the growing frustration among America's Gulf allies, we shouldn't be surprised. Several reports today claim that the U.S. president's push to help commercial ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz ran into serious trouble after a key Gulf ally reportedly suspended the U.S. military's ability to use its bases in airspace for operation. Last Sunday, Trump stunned allies and adversaries alike when he announced Project Freedom, an initiative he said would escort stranded vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. The irony was hard to miss. After beating the war drums on Iran himself, Trump was suddenly projecting himself as the sole guardian of peace. Project Freedom had all the hallmarks of a classic Trump spectacle, where the world does not just watch the show, it also has to live through it. But few were more angered than Saudi Arabia's leadership. Saudi officials were reportedly caught off guard by both the scale and the suddenness of Trump's announcement. According to U.S. officials cited in reports, Saudi Arabia informed Washington that it would neither allow U.S. military aircraft to operate from Prince Sultan Air Base, southeast of Riyadh, nor permit the use of Saudi airspace to support the mission. That is no small move. Remember, Prince Sultan Air Base is one of America's most critical military assets in the Gulf. Without it, the logistics, air cover, and strategic reach needed for such an operation becomes significantly harder.
So she's confirming the Saudi thing there. I was trying to find, if not, I'll just show it in the article, because when I saw it, it was live, and then this live went on for God knows how long. So let me go back to that video in the article so you guys can see the image here. See if it shows you. So this is the video footage that Iran released. Now, they say this is the U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone that was shot down. Now, they're saying that they shot down this drone on Thursday. And CENTCOM and the US government is just like, no, don't worry about it. That never happened. It's not real. You see how they're trying to cover it up? They're trying to hide this information. The US is losing and has been losing. Now, I don't know how much these things cost, but I imagine they cost quite a bit. So you can see that there. They have video footage, and corporate Western media, of course, doesn't even want to show you that this happened. What can I tell you? Right? So you guys see what's going on, right? You see the real deal. On Press TV, this is what they said here about how the US has failed here.
That is a major failure because, as we know, everything that Trump had said that he wanted to accomplish by this war, he hasn't been able to accomplish. So he wanted to do what he called regime change. Of course, he was only able to change our Imam Khamenei, who was 88 years old, with another Imam Khamenei who was 50-some-year-old, the same principles, the same path and everything. And he's trying to say that, oh, we changed the regime. So it's very interesting. So one, he failed at so-called regime change. Then he wanted to steal Iran's highly enriched uranium. That operation failed, and it costed the U.S. like 9, aircrafts and drones and so on. And so
that's taxpayer money. Everybody hear this? Every time you see one of these planes, one of these drones are, shot down, thrown into the sea or whatever, that's taxpayer dollars. These weapons are not cheap. They're expensive. And according to what Colonel Wilkerson told me earlier the other day, as much as Trump says that he's just going to blow Iran out of the world or whatever, Colonel Wilkerson said the U.S. doesn't even have those type of weapons to do that anymore, other than nukes. That the weapon stock that the U.S. have, we don't even have it like that anymore. You know why? Because we gave a lot of it to Israel and we've been giving a lot to Ukraine. We ain't got it like that. Trump is bluffing. If we were sitting down playing poker right now, he'd probably sit up there and tell you, oh man, I'm going to beat all of you. I got the best hand ever. It's called a bluff.
Everything Trump had said, and then eventually he had to aim as low as something that wasn't even the problem before the war. So his final aim was to actually try and open the Strait of Hormuz, which had been open prior to the U.S.-Israeli aggression on Iran. And even that has failed. But why does he, that is a good question, that why he constantly talks to media, why he constantly puts out messages. Why does Western media constantly make these inflated claims about the success in Iran? Is of course because they haven't reached anything on the ground, that they need to tell their audience that we have achieved something. On the other hand, Iran does not have to inflate anything. Iran has accomplished big. Iran has kicked out the US regime off its territory, has protected its sovereignty, has destroyed American military bases, radar systems, other interests in the region, and any point of aggression within also the American proxies in our region.
Okay.
But what is Iran is doing is, of course, Iran is showing in practice on the battlefield what it has done, and it has no need to actually try to inflate anything.
Yeah. Something I want to mention to you guys as well, and I haven't showed it in a while, and I need to show it again on this show. So I have to go back through my videos and find that one. But I just want to remind everybody, the U.S. foreign policy objective was decided a long time ago. It's even listed in the Brookings Institute. Now, it was journalist Brian Berlatek that brought this to my attention. So when people say, well, if we would have had Kamala, or if we would have had somebody else in there, it would be different. Yeah, Kamala may have used different strategies than what Donald Trump did, right? Like Kamala wouldn't say, we're going to blow them out of the water. Like she wouldn't do anything like that. But people have to understand that these presidents, they're not, when it comes to foreign policy, the decisions have already been made. And I had to be woken up to that. And they were made by the elites. Now, Donald Trump's a little bit different because he's a billionaire. He's a politician. He's the president, but he's also a billionaire. So he's also part of the elites. But the foreign policy decisions have already been made and decided. It's just a matter of getting the puppet in that they need in to do it. This is why I keep telling you it's us versus the elites. Now, they don't want all of us to realize that. That's why they have to keep us separated on a blue team and a red team. And don't get me wrong, there are some differences within the two parties that, you know, people do stress and have issues with. And I understand that. But what I am telling you is that at the end of the day, the one common enemy that we have is the elites. It's the billionaire class. It's the bankers. It's the people who are really have. There was a study that came out of Princeton, Martin Gillen's, the Gillen study, where that study showed that people who have little to no money, lower income, even middle class, if what's left of it, that they do not influence policy decision. Wealthy people influence policy decision. Look it up. It's called the Gillen study, came out of Princeton. Look it up. This is why I keep telling you guys, like, and I'm glad more people are seeing it now. More people are paying attention to the big money that's going in electoral politics. And that's good. But it's not just electoral politics. It's everything else. It's the data centers coming into the lower income neighborhoods. It's the foreign policy decisions, which are on the Brookings Institute website. So everybody has to get this through their head. And a lot of people are not saying this. I think some don't know. I think some do know, but they don't want to say it because they're supposed to be red team or they're supposed to be blue team. But the reality is the foreign policy decisions have already been decided. And it was not decided by who will be president. It was decided by the elites. They made that decision a long time ago. And so far, everything has gone the way they wanted it to go with foreign policy. Now, what they did not expect was the blowback. They didn't expect thousands of people to get out in the street all over the world protesting against what Israel was doing. They didn't expect that. So now they got a little bit of a problem. They have a PR problem. And I don't think there's any way of fixing that at all. All right. This war with Iran, this isn't over. I'm warning everybody now, regardless of who wins in 2028, the foreign policy decisions have already been made. And when it comes to Iran, even if it's a Democrat, they're going to do what those generals and the donors tell them to do. They're going to do what Israel tells them to do. So somebody clip this and save it for when that time comes. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Thank you, Imberg. I voted PSL in 2024. I like them more than the Greens. The new terror definition is terrifying. Biden conflated anarchism as president as well. He did. Yeah, he did. Thank you, Kinman. Hantavirus. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Yeah, I saw about that too. I'm telling you guys, like, God knows, last thing we need is another pandemic. But I'll also tell you this. I think the elites will be behind that too. All goes back to money. All goes back to money. Speaking of money, let's go ahead and get into the next story, ladies and gents. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please do me a solid and smash that like button. Thank you. Oh boy, people are really angry with Killer Mike. Killer Mike, rapper of Run the Jewels, also an activist and organizer, was a big Bernie bro, starting with 2016, actually. So he was really much supported like the Bernie policies and going forward. Killer Mike released a video about the voting rights, and he's getting a lot of crap from people because he did not support Kamala Harris for president. So let's go ahead and dive into this, and I'm going to show you what they're not showing you. Because what people are trying to do is they're trying to basically say that Killer Mike is right wing or he's a conservative. And they're putting up pictures of Killer Mike, like having these meetings with Brian Kemp, Governor Brian Kemp in Georgia. but they're not showing you the other meetings that Killer Mike had. So let's go ahead and get into this here. Here we go. This was after the Voting Rights Act was gutted. Listen to this.
Hey, what's up? Onyx Impact, Black Male Initiative. This is Killer Mike, also known as Michael Render. 1965 Voters' Rights Act just got gutted. They gutted it. They literally eviscerated it, and is now trying to make it easier, or allowed it to be easier, for states to redraw district lines to annex those most in need out. This is not just black people and African Americans. This is poor people. So
now, I know that ain't who I think it is. Game recognized game, and you looking real unfamiliar, Killer Mike. You want to talk about the importance of voting and the Voting Rights Act being slashed, but did you care about that back in 2016? No, the fuck you didn't. Killer Mike says he's not voting for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, and that was on August 12th, 2016. And for the people that be like, oh.
Pause. So let's go back to 2016. Right? Yes, Roger. They're ice cubing Michael Render. They are. Michael Render is Killer Mike's real name. Let's go back to 2016. Right? So Killer Mike was supporting Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary, and he said that he was not going to support Hillary Clinton. So here we go again with blaming the voter instead of blaming the candidate, and the candidate not choosing to give towards demands, right? That people were demanding. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Do I need to say this again? Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. The majority of Americans that voted for Hillary Clinton. But people are pointing their fingers at Killer Mike. One person, one dude, when Hillary won the popular vote. Help me figure it out, guys. Help me help you. Right? Okay. Let's continue on.
Well, he might have learned over the years. Let's see what Killer Mike had to say about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in 2024. On Michael track, talking that shit, he raps, I don't give a fuck who the president is if the president's not for me. Does he think Kamala Harris is for him? I think anyone holding the position of president can do the things that I like about Bernie Sanders, he says cautiously, pointing to the issues such as legislation of marijuana and tax increases to fund education. Will Kamala or Trump have the wherewithal to do it? I don't know. So you want to talk about the severity of the Trump administration and what they just did to the Voting Rights Act. But in 2016, you were uncommitted to Hillary Clinton. And in 2024, you said, will Kamala or Trump have the wherewithal to do it? I don't know.
So all that proves to me is that Killer Mike had demands and they weren't met by either one. Killer Mike didn't vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, but they don't tell you that part. They just tell you the thing that he did not vote for Kamala Harris. Okay? Again, this is one person. One person. So I don't know how everybody else feels about this, but I'm so over blaming the voter. I'm so over that, especially when the voter has demands. You guys know we're really demands focused over here. You may not agree with all the demands. That's fine. But people do need to get something for their vote. Isn't that what Kamala Harris is saying now? Isn't Kamala Harris going around the country telling people now, and she even said this to black voters, that you should get something for your vote? Wasn't that what Killer Mike was doing? Let's go on.
You've been uncommitted this whole time. So do we need someone like you on the front lines trying to spread awareness and shit? No, the fuck we don't. You can go ahead and take a back seat, Killer Mike. Go continue to do your music. But as far as you in politics and trying to lead the black community, we are good. It's like all of these people that didn't want to take politics as seriously as they should, now all of a sudden want to take it serious. And it's just like, you had your opportunities and you showed your true self. We don't want no parts of what you're trying to influence anymore.
Right, because I guess it's just best just to sit back and just do what you're told. So here's the thing. Things are changing in this country. People have to understand, black people are not a monolith. Things are changing. And everybody, and I said this before, everyone should demand something for their vote. Do you think, if you look back and you look at the people who supported Donald Trump, didn't they have demands? Okay, then. But for some reason, you weren't allowed to have demands for Kamala Harris. I don't get this. I don't get it at all. And to me, it seems like a lot of gatekeeping. And honestly, I'm quite too old for the shit and I'm tired of it. So they're coming after Killer Mike with this. They're sharing this picture of Killer Mike having a meeting with Governor Kemp. This guy said here, he said, "This was you during Miss Abrams' campaign. Where are the programs for Black boys that you said you did this for? Why did you go talk to your friend about Black voting rights being taken away? Where's the fucking lie? Try somebody else." So this is a picture of Killer Mike meeting with Brian Kemp. Killer Mike responds here, "The governor race was in 2018. I supported Abrams. My meeting with Governor Kemp about jobs, trades, and more was in 2020. You are incredible, liar, and FN too. Stop lying." So do you see how people are just, hold on. Do you see how people are putting up pictures, getting the dates wrong, and saying all these types of things? Right? You see how they're not telling you the whole story? Let's go to the next one. Didn't he criticize Black students for protesting the Second Amendment? Didn't he interview Herschel Walker? For what reason? Didn't he buddy up with RFK Jr.? So Torrin Walker, who's been on the show, he says, he points this out. Black people must embrace the Second Amendment. So here's something I want to say about this, because I consider myself to be a leftist, but I disagree with many of the leftists when it comes to the Second Amendment. And let me tell you why. I believe you have a right to protect yourself. Sorry. And I'm not changing my mind on that one. Too much shit has happened. Too much has happened. And if you look at a lot of the revolutionary leaders, you look at the Black Panthers, etc., they believed also that you had a right to protect yourself with that Second Amendment. So I do support that. Killer Mike has not agreed with every single policy position of a candidate that he supported. In fact, when he supported Bernie Sanders, one issue where he disagreed with Bernie, and he told him during the interview, was the Second Amendment. Killer Mike said, "I agree with you on all the healthcare stuff and all this type of stuff, but I do not agree with you on taking the guns and being against the guns." So what that shows you is that Killer Mike is not looking for a perfect politician, but he is looking for a politician that he feels is going to be the best beneficial to the Black community and also to the working class. So no, for the people saying he wanted someone perfect, no, he was not looking for someone perfect. But I told you guys they were going to do this, didn't I? Didn't I tell you after Donald Trump won that a lot of people were going to point their fingers at those who were not willing to support Kamala Harris, instead of pointing their fingers at Kamala Harris and telling her she should have had a better campaign and she should have listened to the demands? And I think some of these people are paid to do it too. You know, it always comes out. Here's what they don't tell you. They tell you he sat down with Herschel Walker, who's a Republican. They tell you he interviewed RFK Jr. I remember that, who RFK Jr. at the time was running as a Democrat. You see how people don't do any fucking research? RFK Jr. at the time was running as a Democrat first. He was running against Joe Biden. This was before Kamala Harris was named as the nominee. He only decided to run as an independent after the Democrats were suing him off the ballot. Now, I got my own opinions about RFK. I think he just wanted a fucking job. I'm just keep it real. I don't think he really had any solid principles as we see going forward. But he was running as a Democrat. However, yeah, he talked to Herschel Walker. He also talk to his opponent. Here's Killer Mike with Raphael Warnock.
This feels really comfortable to me because the barber shop is where it happens.
Absolutely.
Right? This is where real conversations happen, and it actually reminds me of my first job was in the barber shop. By the way,
No,
I'm just thinking about that as I'm sitting here with you. You know, we've gone backwards. But back in the day, the little boy who would take the whisk broom and wipe the hair. I was that kid.
Okay, so why all these people who are attacking Killer Mike? Why aren't they telling you he also spoke to Democrats too? He also interviewed Democrats. Why aren't they telling you that? This is why independent media is important, and not all of it, because some of it, you know, I saw some of the videos and I'm like, yeah, some of these people I think are working for the Democratic Party. I don't have to say that about the Republican hosts because they're very upfront about that. But there's some of these political commentators that are pretending to be independent, and these people are working for the Democratic Party, as was revealed with Chorus. This one here, because this is just, it's wild to me. Here's a video of you implying that if you couldn't have Bernie Sanders, you'd sit the election out altogether. Okay, so let's listen to the video.
No president is perfect. Right. That person just wasn't perfect for me. Doesn't mean Trump was. Just means you weren't perfect for me. I thought Bernie Sanders should be our president. You want the truth? That's it. That's just the truth. Yeah. Why didn't you vote Hillary? Because I voted Bernie.
Well, yeah, but it got to a point where it was either going to be Hillary or Trump.
It gets to a point where I get the fine stripper or the fat stripper. If the fine stripper can't dance, I don't want the fat one. I just won't be getting to dance right now.
So they just leave out the fact that the super delegates took states away from Bernie Sanders that he won and gave it to Hillary Clinton during the Democratic National Convention. These people who are attacking Killer Mike, they just leave that out, right? They don't say anything about corruption. They don't say, pay attention. They don't say anything about the corruption and how corrupt the system is. That's why, and this is another thing, when they said, well, all those people who supported Bernie in 2016 should have went out there and supported Hillary. She cheated. You kidding me? She cheated, and what made it worse was Bernie Sanders went out there and then helped her, knowing it was cheating. That the system is corrupt. That's one. Two, who are they to tell Killer Mike who he must vote for? Does this happen with any other group of people in the United States? Let me know. Why is it? No, listen to me for a second. Why is it that other groups are allowed to be a swing voter? Why is it that other groups in the U.S. are allowed to be independent voters and they can bounce back and forth between parties? The majority of Black voters voted for Kamala Harris. The majority of Black voters voted for Hillary Clinton. But you got people out here pointing their fingers at one Black voter who did not vote for either one of them when the majority of the Black population did. This type of shut up, get in line, and follow mentality is not something that I prescribe to. It's gatekeeping. But every other group in this country is allowed to be an independent voter. Why? Think about that. Now, it goes on because I just feel like, again, all this, the rapper should have did this, should have did that. You can even see here, he said, you got to be special kind of stupid. I'm team OG Bernie Bubba. Like he was, fighting with people all back and forth. There they were calling him MAGA Mike. So do you see how this goes? If you didn't support Kamala or if you didn't support Hillary, then that means that you were MAGA. I'm going to find out if they're paying some of these people. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to find out. Some of these people I think are paid. And some of these accounts that are on X that don't have faces and just have these little pictures or whatever, I think some of these people they're paid operatives. As I told you, I found out some of these accounts that were pretending to just be Trump supporter accounts were actually people who worked in the White House. It's wild. It's wild. Listen to what Killer Mike said to Bill Maher about his vote.
What are your feelings on the election coming up? I mean, Biden and Trump, are you as depressed about that as most people as a choice?
My feeling is pick your policy, not your person. Find out. This is not the Dallas Cowboys versus your favorite team. This is the policies that will affect our generations for the next 20, 30, 40 years to come. So close your eyes, listen to the policies that are being pushed, and pay attention even to the people who don't have a chance of winning, because they're going to say policies you may want to push. And I would say do that, but make it policy-based.
So that means you're for...
That means I'm for black people and happy Black History Month.
But you're not saying one candidate over the other?
Hey man, my nigga, you ain't gonna get me in no trouble tonight.
No, that's your job with me, to get me in trouble.
My grandfather gave me some stellar advice sometimes. He said, son, sometimes you just got to know to stay out of white folks' business. And this time, I'm going to keep my mouth closed. I still like the policy that the old man had that I was supporting. I would encourage people to find who's supporting that policy and see what happens.
But you can't get yourself to say vote for Biden over Trump?
You want me to list it now? So now
I'm just saying that.
Can he get himself to apologize for the crime bill? Can he get himself to get his head out of his ass and say, black people, you are black regardless. I need you to tell me what I need to do. Can he pick a coalition of former people who are affected by drug laws, street gangs, recidivism and crime, and say, I need you as a board to advise me how to fix federal prisons? If he can do that, absolutely I can. So my challenge is out there.
So it sounded like, again, towards the end of that conversation, Killer Mike had demands for Joe Biden. He said, if he could do this, I'll come out and support him. There were demands on both sides. The big difference is that Donald Trump agreed to the demands. Now, he ain't fulfilled these demands, but Donald Trump agreed to those demands and said he would do it, and Kamala Harris did not, and Joe Biden did not. And if people really want to point fingers, and some people ain't gonna like this, but if people really want to point fingers, instead of pointing your fingers at the voters, how many of the people yelling at Killer Mike, how many of them said anything about Joe Biden staying in the race as long as he did, waiting so long to drop out? How many of them said anything about the fact that Joe Biden didn't even go on the campaign trail to support Kamala Harris? What? I guess that's Killer Mike's fault too. Well, you think people wouldn't notice that? How come none of those people say anything about the fact that the Democratic Party didn't even have a fucking primary? That she was just selected? Killer Mike says here, because they are accusing him of not campaigning to help black politicians even win. He said, blacks I help campaign and or win. Kasim Reed, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and sending Raphael Warnock, Senator John Ossoff, white but good for Georgia, Miss Abrams too. To not like Mike is okay, to be a liar is not. So they don't tell you these things. Killer Mike has been an activist, an organizer, right? Like, here is Killer Mike meeting with the DNC chair, the new DNC chair. But they're online telling you that he supported Trump and that he was MAGA. He said, here's one from last week. This guy told me I should run for office. FYI, this is an intelligence test, so make sure you pass. Isn't that Ken from the DNC, the chair of the DNC? Does everybody understand? But they're not showing you this. So they were on offense, he was on defense, and now he has to come forward with all this stuff to say they're lying about me. They got on offense and got the narrative out first. And I saw people make videos about this without even doing any research or looking into what was said. Killer Mike has always been one to tell people to get out there and register to vote. He's always been one that said, let's build in the community. He's known for that. Now, is he perfect? No. Does he focus on local politics? Yes. Does he actually do shit? Yes. And a lot of these people who are pointing their fingers at Killer Mike, you ain't never seen them in the streets. A lot of these people who point their fingers at Killer Mike or anybody else who did not want to support the establishment genocidal candidates, you never see these people in the street. When I'm organizing, I'll never see these people. When it was time to start the Boston Mutual Aid chapter, I see none of these people. These people exist online and online only. You never see them out in the street. When I say, let's get together and let's do this, they are nowhere to be found. And a lot of these people pointing their fingers at Killer Mike, nowhere to be found. Best bet you'll get for them, they'll show up for a political event and that's it. But when it comes time to actually do something and organize and help the people, they are nowhere to be found. Keyboard warriors. That's why a lot of these accounts don't show their face. But I can tell you from experience, the people who only want you to pay attention to the presidential election, the people who only want you to focus on what's happening in the White House and not what's happening in your backyard, in your neighborhood, down the street from you, in your city, in your town, I call it suspect. Because they're never around. Never. You got whole ass data centers taking up communities right now, poisoning people right now. These people are nowhere to be found. When they talk all this stuff online, but when you say, okay, let's get together, let's do this, crickets. They're not organizers. They're gatekeepers. And one thing that is changing, and you can feel however you feel about it, one thing that is changing is that Black voters are starting to change their mind. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're voting Republican, but what it does mean is that people are starting to ask, what is in it for me? Every other group does this. I sat there and I watched Bernie Sanders talk to the Latino voters, and I watched them say, this is what we need. And Bernie said, okay. I saw it with my own eyes, not on TV, in person on the ground. Every other group does this. But this idea, for whatever reason, when it comes to Black voters, you better get in line and vote Democrat or else. How did we get here? That's why they don't like Killer Mike. That's why they don't like Nina Turner, although she still supports the Democratic Party. But when she said she wasn't voting for Joe Biden, they raised all hell on her. That's why they don't like Breonna Joy Gray. This is why you don't see people like them and myself. You do not see us invited to these conversations on corporate media because they don't want us to say what we're saying. Torn Walker says it here. Killer Mike does everything people claim they want rappers to do. His business is in the Black community. He's active in local politics and uses his influence to connect people to access and power. I've seen it up close. Most folks I see attacking him do nothing but yap. So that's from Torn Walker. Torn's right there in Atlanta too. I've had him on the show a couple times. So, because it's not even about that. It's about doing what they feel you're supposed to do, which is vote Democrat at all costs, even if it's not going to benefit you at all. But every other group can swing back and forth. And you've seen that. You saw Donald Trump get increased support from the Hispanic voters this time around compared to 2016. But you also saw Biden get increases. Like you saw the Democrats get increases. You saw Trump get increases. Like I said, with certain other groups, they're allowed to swing back and forth. But when it comes to Black voters, we're supposed to shut up and just vote for the Democratic Party. And that's it. My whole point is this. Killer Mike is one person, one voter. Let's say Killer Mike did vote for Kamala Harris. Okay, that's a vote for Kamala in Georgia. Let's say Kamala did win Georgia. Kamala still loses the election. It's very weird to me that people don't understand how elections even work. The popular vote does not determine who wins. The Electoral College determines who wins a presidential election. So even if Killer Mike had voted for Kamala Harris still loses. It's insane. It's insane, man. I'm telling you. But it's coming. Wait for it. It's not over. Come 2028. Wait for 2028. If you think they're coming after people now, wait till 2028. It's going to start all over again. It's not over. But I am not 100% convinced that even though Donald Trump's policies and his behavior has been absolutely absurd and ridiculous, I am not 100% convinced that that is going to make the majority of black voters, well, not black voters, the majority of black people to say, okay, I got to register and vote and come out there and support the Democrats. I'm not convinced. And it's because of what people have said to me on the ground. So something to think about. Let's go to part 3 here, Eric. All right. Let's keep it moving and grooving. Sheila said she lost the margin of pro-Palestinians in Michigan who sat out, no accident. Yeah, and again, people had demands. Thank you, Kevin. Thoughts on Mark Kelly 2028? I have not looked into Marky Mark. Thank you, Kenman. Mr. Beads is a Democrat lackey. Thank you, Measured Man. What the hell Hillary Clinton has to do with this? Our people will perish for lack of knowledge. Boy, I tell you. Thank you, Kevin. Hillary 48% versus Trump, so not a majority. And thank you, January. They're coming after Killer Mike because the Dems want to distract from the voters asking for the 2024 autopsy. Ooh, good point there, January. Thank you, Liney. Auntie is upset with you when you go on a vacation. Enjoy yourself. We can wait until you get back. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Wandy. I haven't heard one thing Killer Mike said wrong. Trump sold MAGA out. Thank you, Pop Lights. Politics is local. Local elections matter more. You guys are so smart. Thank you, Kevin. Trump fulfilled demands on SCOTUS, which affected abortion, gender dysphoria, and possibly transgender in sports. Yeah, but I told you guys Obama should have packed the court. Thank you, Live Your Life. Thank you. All right. And thank you, Roger Meadows, who's been a member for 34 months. But I thought it was Jill Stein. Black people, next time they say vote Dem, ask them, why are we at the bottom in New York, Massachusetts, California, Delaware, Maryland, Connecticut, Maine? Well, it's barely any of us in Maine. Oregon, Vermont, same with Vermont, and Washington State. Thank you. Let's get the Rumble rant and keep it moving and grooving. All right. Thank you, Stoop Sign. I wanted Keisha Lance Bottoms for a VP back then, so the bumper sticker would say Biden Bottoms. Sorry, that's funny. That was a good one. Okay, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, please smash that like button, and we're going to keep it moving to the next story. This is a warning we're putting out there for everybody, because what Thomas Massie says here about his campaign and the funding, it is connected to what just happened in Ohio with Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek Ramaswamy just won that gubernatorial primary there. And it's not because Vivek Ramaswamy is a fantastic candidate. This all goes back to money. Thomas Massie has received, a lot of support, but he is out here warning people on Tucker Carlson's show that because of all the money put up against him, he could still lose. Everyone, take a listen to this right here.
So what is the current polling in your race?
It's a single point lead for me. It's not very fluid.
They've spent $10 million against me. And when I say they, I hope we get into they.
Yes.
And it's going to be close. It's just going to be, the result is going to be based on who turns out.
So it was 81% margin, 76, 75, like full on blowouts in the Republican primary in your district in Kentucky. And now it's within a couple of points and you could lose.
Correct.
And the difference is they have spent $10 million against you. So I don't think anyone would dispute that. That's the difference. The money poured into this race from outside of Kentucky is basically pushing you to the point of almost losing, and you may lose. Where'd that money come from?
Well, it didn't come from regular people. It's come from billionaires, and 95% of it, at least 95%, has come from the Israeli lobby. So I'll give you their proxies. The RJC, which is the Republican Jewish Coalition, AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Miriam Adelson, Paul Singer, and John Paulson went together. They funded a PAC called MAGA Kentucky, which is neither MAGA nor Kentucky. But when the ad
any of them live, who are those three people?
They have been, Miriam Adelson is the gambling magnate who's ironically makes money from the Chinese now gambling and not in Las Vegas.
And
so
she's
much.
literally an Israeli.
Yeah, she was born there.
Yep.
She's given over $200 million to the president. He puts her on the stage. He says that she's influenced his own policy and attitudes toward Israel. And so she's trying to buy a congressional seat in Kentucky, along with the rest of these groups that are probably, by the way, getting her money as well. And there's also another interesting faction called Christians United for Israel. They're really just another wing of AIPAC and RJC that's been
Kufi. That's the other group I was telling you guys about. So you guys listen, you hear all these different groups that he mentioned. Remember I told you it's not just AIPAC? You hear all these different organizations that he's missing that are coming after him money-wise.
used to co-opt Christians into supporting their position. And their position is more war, it's more strife, it's more bombs, it's send more foreign aid. And those are the things that I've been voting against. So the real reason that this race is a serious race and I may lose is because a foreign lobby has fully funded to the extent that they've never done in any Republican race ever before my opponent.
So this whole thing with Thomas Massie, and he has a really good point here, is that most of the time, the candidate with the most money wins. Most of the time. And he's in a tough spot right now. So you see it. Sometimes you never know with these polls, because the poll that we saw before, he was well ahead of the opponent, but now he's saying he's only 1 point ahead of the opponent. Now, when someone has more money, that means that they can throw as many ads out there as possible. So you're constantly bombarded by ads from one candidate, right? So the more you see them, the more you get that name recognition. And then when you go to vote, you're like, oh, okay, this person. And, you know, they put out ads like Thomas Massie voted against Israel. Is Thomas Massie anti-Israel? They do those types of ads. And the more money you have, the more ads you can put out, the more mailers you can also mail, like those little cards that you see in your mailbox, those little mailers, they can do those as well. So I think this is really important. And so he's letting people know that he could still lose because of the money. So money buys elections, you know, and it's wild and crazy, but you got to see why they went against him. Here's another reason why they went against him.
For taking on those threats, Lauren Boebert, they took her over to the Situation Room, right? Like, this is where, if they're trying to kill or capture Osama bin Laden, this is where they are at the White House. They took her into the Situation Room and tried to whip her into taking her name off of the discharge petition.
Over Epstein.
Over Epstein, yep. And then the president vetoed a bill that would have brought water to a large portion of Colorado. Like,
over Epstein.
Over Epstein. And this isn't even, at this point, it's not just about Lauren Boebert. Why are people in Colorado deprived of water? Because their representative wants to expose a sex trafficking ring.
I mean, none of
You guys see this problem that's happening here? So I don't know what to tell you guys, but it all comes down to the money, right? So the billionaire money, it really does matter. It really does matter. And that's why I say when we talk about all of this, we have to get back to the overall point, which is that it's all corrupt. It's a corrupt system. We have a corrupt government, and it just is what it is. That's why it's laughable to me when our government says that other governments are corrupt. They shouldn't be allowed to buy elections. We should just be able to vote for the person we want to vote for. Everybody should be able to have the same amount of ads. In my opinion, everybody should be able to have the same amount of ads. To be fair, everyone should participate in a debate, regardless if you're an independent or third party or not. This is the way I would do it. But it's not up to us because we don't control it. It's controlled by big money. That's why these things don't happen. Now, I hope in Kentucky people do right and think right with this one. But I don't know. You know, again, like if I see 200, 240, 1,000 negative ads about Thomas Massie, and then, you know, they're definitely going to take the Israel angle. This is what I was saying. Like they will say, instead of Thomas Massie voted against sending money to Israel, they'll say something like Thomas Massie voted against legislation for Israel. Is Thomas Massie against Jews? They'll do something like that in the ad. I saw one recently. They had an ad of Thomas Massie and it was fake. They used AI and it was Thomas Massie with AOC and Ilhan Omar, and it showed them walking together, being friendly. That wasn't even real. You get me? They're using AI in these ads, and they said Thomas Massie votes with the squad. Wasn't even real. And they were allowed to do that. Again, no regulation, a lot of corruption. Now that brings me to the Vivek part of this discussion. Vivek Ramaswamy just won the gubernatorial primary race. He just won it. And I'm going to let you know, this one, this should give everybody pause. Everyone pause. Vivek Ramaswamy didn't win this primary because he's just a phenomenal politician. He won because of the money that he had pouring into his campaign. Listen to this here.
I know that American dream exists because I have lived it in this state, because of the opportunities that the state of Ohio gave to me and to my family. And my faith teaches me that we have a moral duty to use those blessings, to use those gifts that we have been given, to leave this state and this country better than we found it.
So he's another Harvard selected candidate. He's another one. Interestingly enough, I showed this about 2 years ago. Vivek Ramaswamy and Pete Buttigieg were at the same Kennedy Center event, and they were asking questions to Al Sharpton when they were college students there. And it's just interesting. Both of them got the opportunity to ask a question, and they both ended up running for president. Interesting how that works out. But this is someone who's also uber rich, bought and paid for, made a lot of profit from the healthcare system. Not to help you, the American people. But Vivek is just, I told you before, he tries too hard. Like, he's one of those people, he tries too hard. He wants to fit in so badly that, like, he just says shit sometimes that doesn't even make any sense. And it's like, dude, that's not even who you are. Someone who apparently just appeared out of nowhere and all of a sudden became MAGA, but wasn't MAGA, is really weird. But he ran on this type of message. So he adopted this affordability lingo. Listen to this.
We need to bring down the income tax, eventually down to zero, because you deserve to keep what you earn. It is your money, not the government's. We need to bring down property taxes in this state immediately, eventually down to zero. If you own land, it should not feel like it's a lease from the government. And yet so many Ohioans are paying as much in property taxes as they are on principal repayments on their mortgage. That is wrong, it is un-American, and it will end one way or another on my watch as your next governor.
You know what's interesting here? When these politicians a lot of times say we should get rid of the income tax and get rid of the property taxes, which I do support. Taxes are a bitch. They never tell you where the money is going to come from to fund the public schools, because property taxes fund public schools. So if they remove income tax and property tax, where is that money going to come from to fund the public schools? They never really explained that. Ron DeSantis didn't really get into this either. But the lingo that he's using there is obviously, these are the kind of things that would come from someone on the left, right? But he used that language and he won. Now he's talking about money. He's talking about their pocket, their kitchen table issues, right? But that's not the only reason why he was able to win. Because you can talk about those things all day long, but the reality is, if you don't have the money, you may struggle. Gen X girl, really great at pointing this out. Are U.S. elections bought? Mel pointed out the extreme difference between Vivek Ramaswamy's spending compared to Casey Push. So I decided to research, and holy shit. So look at this. Vivek Ramaswamy, $79.5 million. Push, I hope I'm pronouncing Push's name right, $123,000. We're talking about 79.5 million versus 123,000. Vivek had 82.5% of the vote. Push had 17.5%. Cost/vote, $118. Cost/vote for Push, $1. Look at this here. Let me make this bigger for you. Vivek Ramaswamy, self-funding. You see the self-funding? $25 million. Self-funding. I'll make it bigger for you guys. Sorry. I just realized it wasn't as big as I thought it was. Donations to the campaign, $25 million. Super PAC, $29.5 million. That's the total, $79.5. If you look at Casey Push, $0 self-funding, 123,000 donations to the campaign, no super PAC money, $123,000 total fundraising. So the reason I wanted you to see this, and look at the disparity, look at the graph. Look at it. You see the difference? See that? So money buys elections. When you got the money, you can get in like that. And that's how Vivek Ramaswamy was able to win that primary. All the money that poured into his campaign. We're talking that's millions of dollars. Kind of hard to beat that, huh? So he is now the GOP primary contender. He will face Amy Acton, who's the Democrat and is favored to defeat Vivek Ramaswamy with a 53% chance. But that's what it says right now. As time gets closer, I can imagine this is going to change. You can already see right now, you got the blue line, you got the red line. She's above him, but it's getting closer. And that's going to come down to money too. You know, a lot of times people say, when I say people blame the voter, a lot of times when people get out there and they blame the voter and all this type of stuff, you know what they don't blame? Money. Big money in electoral politics. That's what they don't blame. They're pointing fingers at everybody else except for all the big money. All the big money coming in. If the election were today, according to this, she would win. Is that going to hold? We don't know. But what I will say is this. If Thomas Massie loses in Kentucky, you'll know why. You see why Vivek was able to win the way that he did? It wasn't even close. Money will do that. He sold out. Now, do you guys really think that after all that, do you think that he's going to fulfill those promises that he made to the working class people about no income tax, no property tax, those types of things? You think that's going to be first on his agenda? No. The donor class will be first on his agenda. They funded the majority of his campaign, and that's how that works. So I want you to see the difference. When Thomas Massey has his race, we'll be paying attention to those numbers. And you'll be able to see how money really works in politics. Okay. All right. I think Eric said he's going to read the rest of the super chats. Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. Cool. All right. We got one more story for you, ladies and gents. Again, the theme is it's not over. And apparently when it comes to Michael Jackson, it's not over either. I've been wanting to talk about this, for about a week or two. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. The question has now become, was Michael Jackson betrayed? And more importantly, was Michael Jackson betrayed by Oprah Winfrey? Because you see, I just want to show you what's being said right now. After the success of the movie Michael, the Wall Street Journal, they just, published this article. Michael Jackson's celebrity is so blinding, his music so compelling that it cloaks him with an almost impenetrable shield from the truth. He was a stone cold pedo, writes Maureen Orth. Okay. So Michael Jackson was acquitted on these charges. And it's like, they won't let this man just die. Like Michael Jackson is dead. But they don't want his estate to really get any more money. You see, this is part of the problem. You see the way they're still coming after him when he was acquitted on all of this. And I told you guys, and we're going to go through it tonight. But I told you, I never believed that Michael Jackson did that. And when you follow the timeline, I think you'll understand why they came after him. And I think you know what I mean by they. So if we go back here, because he was spot on, Michael Jackson was acquitted of all charges by unanimous jury verdict. So what did Michael Jackson do, and why is the Wall Street Journal attacking him now that this biopic is out? In 1993, Michael Jackson wrote an unreleased song, Palestine, Don't Cry, which expressed explicit solidarity with the Palestinian people and highlighted the suffering of the children in the region. Jackson's public actions during his 1993 visit to the region included visiting hospitals in Tel Aviv to spend time with both Arab and Jewish children, with some reports noting he met a child from Gaza. However, he did not visit the occupied territories, and the song itself was never released. Reports were suggesting that Sony Records blocked its distribution due to the pressure from the Zionist lobby. What else happened in 1993? Let's go forward here. In 1993, he wrote the song Palestine Don't Cry. When was Michael Jackson first accused of child sex abuse? 1993. You hear me? 1993. I don't get why people still can't get this through their heads. Okay? Michael Jackson was very vocal about many things. He was very vocal about Tommy Mottola. Mariah Carey warned people years ago that Tommy Mottola was a monster. She was married to him. They came after him in 1993. Now, the reason why we are bringing this up is because right now, Michael Jackson has shattered his best streaming week total after the biopic release. Michael Jackson is breaking records again, and he's not even alive. Because after the biopic was released, people started to download his songs again. So he's still breaking musical records because of that. And so once he started beating these records again, the Wall Street Journal comes out with that article. They won't let this go. Now, it's not just them, though, because see, the late icon more than doubles his previous best total as Thriller and Billie Jean lead his albums and songs return. Michael Jackson is breaking records again. But the problem is, Michael Jackson did not want to go along with the Zionist lobby. And it's not just him. They've done this to others as well. When Michael Jackson started speaking up for himself, I want to do this. I care about, remember this? I care about all children. Who else did they do this to more recently? Remember Miss Rachel? The infamous YouTuber that makes all this content for kids, and she said she cares about all children. Zionist lobby and entity and organizations tried their best to ruin Miss Rachel. They were attacking her family members. They wouldn't leave Miss Rachel alone because she brought a little Palestinian girl onto her show. A Palestinian girl who was an amputee, who became that way because of the war. So people say, well, they never saw this before. No, you saw it before, more recently. Because once you say you care about all of them, you're not supposed to say you care about those Palestinians. Michael Jackson was a very caring person, and he wasn't willing to do that. And that brings me to Oprah Winfrey. I remember this. Michael Jackson invited Oprah Winfrey into his home for this interview. You hear me? He invited her into his home and had a pretty candid interview with Oprah Winfrey. After Michael Jackson died, Oprah Winfrey then goes behind the family's back and went out of her way, and you will see this. Oprah went out of her way to bring on Wade Robson to talk about this after this Neverland documentary. Wade Robson came on Oprah Winfrey's show and said that he was abused by Michael Jackson, only to years later come forward and say it was a lie. She went out of her way to do it. So let's go back to when Oprah was invited into Michael Jackson's home.
Yards, I guess, from the house. And it's incredible. Thank you. And I want to know whether or not you did this for yourself or did you do it for all the children that you entertain here?
For myself and the children. Every 3 weeks we have terminally ill children that come to the house.
Yeah.
The king of pop is probably too limiting a title for you. I mean, I think that most of the world would agree that you're no doubt one of the greatest entertainers the world has ever seen. When you look in the mirror now and the image that looks back at you, Are there days when you say, well, I kind of like this, or I like that every day?
I'm never
I think
pleased
I'm
with
pretty
myself.
cute today.
No, I'm pretty cute.
Are you bleaching your skin? And is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
Okay, number one, as I know of, there is no such thing as skin bleaching. I have never seen it. I don't know what it is.
Well, they used to have those products growing up. I used to hear always use bleach and glow, but you'd have to have about 300,000 gallons to.
Okay, number one, this is the situation. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help. Okay, but when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me.
So, did you start having plastic surgery because of not liking the way you look?
No.
How much plastic surgery have you had?
Very, very little. Very.
So here's something I wanted to point out here. Because, see, these are the kind of things like you may not have paid attention to back then. Oprah Winfrey has interviewed a lot of people, a lot of celebrities. And how many of them did Oprah Winfrey ask about all their plastic surgeries? All them people, all those celebrities that sat on Oprah Winfrey's couch. Did Oprah ever ask them about their plastic surgeries? Yes, we know, it's with Michael, it's a little bit more obvious, but there were people who sat on Oprah's couch multiple times that it was very obvious that they were getting a lot of work done too. Did Oprah ever ask them about how many plastic surgeries they had? You could tell he's pretty uncomfortable here.
You can count them on 2 fingers. I mean, let's say this. If you want to know about those things, all of the nosy people in the world.
But once we say it, we don't have to say it anymore.
Read my book, Moonwalker. It's in my book. Let's just put it this way. If all the people in Hollywood who have had plastic surgery, if they went on vacation, there wouldn't be a person left in town.
I think you might be right. You had your nose done, obviously.
Yeah, but I've never had my cheekbones done, never had my eyes done, never.
How many celebrity guests that sat on Oprah Winfrey's couch had a nose job? A lot of them. A lot of them. Did Oprah ever ask them about nose job? No.
Never had all that, my lips done and all this stuff. They just go too far. I mean, it's crazy. But this is something that happens like every day with other people.
I have to mute the music just right here. But do you see? See how he invited her into his home? You see this? He was look at this. You see how happy he was to be with Oprah? To see Oprah and to sit down and have this conversation?
And obviously, you have this childlike aura about you. And I see children with you and they play with you like you are one of them.
I love to do things for children, and I try to imitate Jesus. And I'm not saying I am Jesus. I'm not saying
we're clear on that.
Right. I'm trying to imitate Jesus in the fact that he said to be like children, to love children, to be as pure as children are. And to make yourselves as innocent and see the world through eyes of wonderment and the whole magical quality of it all. And I love that.
Dan, I said you were able to...
Pause here for a second. Because now we're fast forwarding to the after Neverland crew, right? So not everybody got the opportunity to interview Michael Jackson. This was a big deal. And to interview him in his home, that's how much he trusted Oprah Winfrey to bring her into his home. And this is what she does. After he was dead, this is what Oprah does.
Wonderment and the whole magical quality of it all. And I love that.
Dan, I said you were able to illustrate in these 4 hours what I tried to explain in 217. As young boys, these 2 men did not feel abuse until much later on in life.
Now we're going to pause here. The guy here in the light blue shirt is Wade Robeson. Now this guy then told a number of lies and got caught in them. This is the same guy. He was a choreographer. He was one of the younger kids that used to do like the Michael Jackson dances and stuff like that when he was a kid. So he was great dancer, great choreographer. This guy came after this appearance. This guy came forward years later and said he made it all up. At this point, when he's sitting on the stage, he's an adult. But he comes forward and say he made it all up. Let's continue.
And when you are a child, this is a message I want every parent to hear. You don't have the language to explain what is happening to you because you've been seduced and entrapped.
What's made you happier?
Then it's fast going back to the interview with Michael. Okay. But she's sitting there and she's pretending. You got to remember, Michael Jackson cannot defend himself. This is after Michael Jackson died. So I'm going to show you what the family also said about what Oprah did too.
Able to give back, you know, and to help people. Heal the World Foundation, which I formed, which helps children and healing and the world. We're doing Heal LA, which is, we have 3 goals in mind: the immunization of children, mentoring, a big sister, big brother program, and education on drug abuse.
I know we have photographs of you from all over the world where you're with all of these children.
I remember when, you know, Gail's children were smaller and and I would always talk about this subject and she would say,
and now she's bringing Gail into this too. Now, this is Gail, Oprah's friend. She's now bringing her into this situation where these 2 guys are alleging that they were abused by Michael Jackson. This has nothing to do with Gail, but she brings her friend into it to further support their claim. Does everybody hear me? She is saying, well, I was speaking to my friend Gail about this when she had her kids to say. She is doing that to show you someone that is close to her can validate what she is saying. She is giving that support to help them in their story. These guys made money off of this. And honestly, like, I was shocked. When Wade came forward later and said he made it all up, he was paid to do it. I was shocked, but he did. And it's the way she went about doing it. Now let's bring in Gail.
oh, my kids will tell me, because my kids aren't going to let themselves be hurt. They're not going to let themselves be punished. I think so many parents don't understand that it doesn't feel like hurt. Yeah. And once you have committed, once you have, in your case, actually said vows and you have rings to prove that, as you say, that you all are together, you're all in. One of your mothers says in the film that she knocks on the door into the theater, and then she comes in and Michael says, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that door was locked. And she comes in the room and she sees you, your clothes are on, and she thinks everything's okay. Because everybody thinks you're gonna look a certain way, or you're gonna look like you've been battered, or you're gonna...
Did the mother ever confirm that? Like, it's just, what? She put this on a world stage for the audience and everybody to see. Again, after he died. After he died. Oprah Winfrey has been for, hold up, back up. Put her on the screen. Oprah Winfrey has been friends with some known, sex offenders. Known ones. Oprah Winfrey has been in circles with people who all up in the Epstein files, okay? All up in there. Where was the world stage for this? Why isn't Oprah sitting down right now during a whole damn discussion about the Epstein files and her friends that were a part of it? Something you can actually point to and say, whoa, here's the pictures, yada, yada. But she did this entire segment off of what these two guys said, who one of them took it back. I mean, I don't, what? Michael Jackson wrote a song about Palestine in 1993. 1993 was when Michael Jackson was accused, the first accusation. And he was the perfect target for this because he was hanging out with all these little kids. Now, I say before I say it again, Michael Jackson shouldn't have been hanging out with them damn kids. Someone said to me that they believe that Michael Jackson may have been on the spectrum, that in his mind, he still felt like he was a kid because he didn't have a childhood. I don't know. I don't know. But it would explain some things. Michael Jackson seemed to feel like he was more comfortable around like animals and kids because they don't seem to come at you with the type of harshness that adults do. It seemed like to me, he just wanted to have a childhood that he never had. People got to remember with the Jackson 5, Michael Jackson was still really young. The rest of them, they got to have somewhat of a childhood. Like Jermaine was older. All of them were older. Michael was still a kid. And by the time they got a record deal, that was after they had already been practicing for years. Remember, he wrote that song, Have You Seen My Childhood? But Oprah be doing dirt. Oprah, she funny. She funny. She be doing some shady shit, you know. Like not paying people what they should be paid. You know, Taraji P. Henson talked about it, but let's go all the way back. You know, actress Monique was the first one that I saw that came forward and said that Oprah did her dirty. At the end of the day, you know, Oprah's a billionaire. Oprah looked out for herself, and you don't become a billionaire by earning it. You become a billionaire by exploitation and getting these government cutbacks. That's how you got in that seat. Oh. But she did this just going off of straight speculation. Because what they said, she had no evidence at this point in time at all. So I asked, did Oprah Winfrey betray Michael Jackson? I think that she did. He trusted her. Really trusted her. That's why he let her come into his house. There's one person that never seems to, you know, go down in the, no matter what happens. Have you always noticed that if Oprah is involved, she never ends up at the bottom? She never ends up being taken down, no matter if she was involved or not. Everybody ever noticed this? I want to show you what the family said. Right here. The Jackson family says that Oprah interview with Michael's accuser is the ultimate betrayal. Taj and Brandy Jackson, niece and nephew to the singer whose legacy is facing further allegations of child abuse, revealed their frustration with Oprah Winfrey over the HBO documentary. This was in 2019. Michael Jackson's family says they are disappointed that Oprah sided with his accusers and called the interview with them the ultimate betrayal. So Taj and Brandy Jackson came forward about this. They referred to Leaving Neverland documentary as one-sided propaganda. Brandy Jackson said Oprah's interview after the 4-hour documentary was a real disappointing situation. As far as journalism is concerned, she really let us down with that. Yeah. Taj added, for me, I've seen it before. I was there when she was requesting an interview with my grandma and Michael's kids talking about Michael was misunderstood. This was after Michael's death. She does what she needs to do to get ratings. To me, it is an ultimate betrayal. Oprah looks out for Oprah. Her of all people. And when you see certain things, and we even think about like Michael Jackson's death, you know, I had questions around that too. I say question everything. Because to me, the doctor who basically murdered Michael Jackson, that doctor's story didn't make any damn sense to me. They wanted to paint this narrative that Michael Jackson was abusing children and he was a drug addict. And that's what they wanted your memory of Michael Jackson to be. That's how they wanted you to remember him. They say that about all the other people who, you know, they want you to remember them as a drug addict. And Michael Jackson was on this pain medication, which apparently, from what I understand, was given to him after his scalp caught on fire. Can you imagine your scalp catching on fire when they were filming that Pepsi commercial? From what I understood, it says that Michael Jackson had to wear wigs from that moment on after that because his scalp was burned like that. Yes, propofol. Thank you, Danny. So imagine the type of pain you might be in. So they gave him that, and that was supposed to take away the pain. But Dr. Conrad, he wants you to believe that, oh, Michael was just an addict and wanted it all over. Really? Here's Michael Jackson 2 days before he passed away. And you tell me what you think. I muted it for the music. Does Michael Jackson look sick to you? Does Michael Jackson look like he's at his wit's end right there? This is 2 days before he was murdered. I mean, he seems to be dancing just fine to me. But according to Dr. Conrad, he would have you believe he was just a druggie and everything. Now, yeah, he's older, so he may not move as fast as he used to. But he looks like he's moving just fine to me. June 23rd, 2009. I believe that Michael Jackson was murdered. I believe they tried to get Michael Jackson with the child abuse claims first, and that was supposed to make him go away. But then when he was acquitted and that didn't work, you know, then it's like, okay, because Michael Jackson didn't just write a song about Palestine. Michael Jackson was fighting for his masters. Don't you remember that? He bought the masters. I think he also bought the Beatles songs and all of that stuff too. Tommy Mottola, Sony didn't like that. They never like for you to try to get some type of ownership for yourself. You're supposed to be, as the artist, you're supposed to be the product. You're not supposed to have ownership. So I believe that Oprah Winfrey betrayed Michael Jackson, just like she betrayed Monique and Taraji P. Henson. You know, the list goes on. That's what the billionaires do. But I also believe that even now, even after the success of the biopic, corporate media got the PR call, and they are still trying to destroy Michael Jackson in his death. And I think it's because he didn't go along with the Zionist entity. Michael Jackson isn't over. Michael Jackson's been dead for years. But as you can see, everybody still remembers Michael Jackson because he made timeless music. And because he was a kind, giving person, he wanted to help all these people in the world. He wanted to help children. Now, knowing what I just showed you, when you get a chance, go back and watch Michael Jackson's music video, They Don't Really Care About Us. Go back and watch it and tell me what you think. All right. That is it for us, ladies and gents. Eric's going to do the show close. So I'll let Eric come in and close it out. And I'm going to get some much needed rest for my voice, for real.
All right. But you done did it.
I am. Yeah, I'm going to let my
Made it
voice
through.
rest. I told you, man, I shouldn't have gone to the gym today. Like, I was lifting weights today, too. That was probably not a good idea.
Well, maybe you'd feel even worse if you hadn't. There you go.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Who knows?
But it's time for relaxation time.
All right. You go get your rest, and we'll see you again on Sunday.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.
All right, we're going to let Sabby have her bit of rest here. I'm going to do a quick show close. Eric T. Red here, coming in from the background into the foreground. Read off what we got on these super chats and maybe say a little bit here and there. There was a news article that came across in front of me today that I wanted to say a quick word about. Let me see if I can find it here on the right tab and click through. Here it is. So this was on actually a local news site around these areas called Mass Live. But yeah, the headline is utility CEOs made $626 million in 2025 while millions of customers fell behind on their bills. And so the story talks about how we have these for-profit electric companies, energy companies out there. Eversource is one in this area that they highlight, and chief executives of those investor-owned, which is a big part of this, right? Investor-owned, I'll say for-profit electric and gas utilities made this $600+ million. Getting close to $1 billion last year, while the 99%, right, the people who use the utilities suffer. And this story gets into how there's a review saying, the compensation jump of nearly 16%. And then the other side of it is, meanwhile, you've got record numbers of people not being able to make their bills, their electric bills, getting disconnected. And what this really highlights is what we need to be looking at in terms of how these things work and how they can be fixed. It doesn't have to be this way, right? We don't have to have for-profit utility companies. It really just shouldn't be a thing. It's kind of similar to what you see with healthcare, right? And for-profit health insurance. I mean, frankly, health insurance just shouldn't even exist, much less for-profit health insurance, where the more they deny you, the more profit they make. What this made me think of on the utility side is, I mean, it doesn't even have to be this way today. Like in the small town in New England here where I am, our town happens to have their own electric utility that serves the town. It doesn't make a particular profit. It's just there to serve the customers in the town. And our electric bills are cheaper. The service is great. The power basically never goes out. And then if you look at other towns, even just in cities just a little ways away from here, they'll have like National Grid and other for-profit like these Eversource and other electric companies, and they pay more. The service sucks, and all you get out of it is those investors for those companies get rich, while the people who need the power and the service suffer. So that's kind of the point with that story. It doesn't have to be this way. And so, if we're saying it doesn't have to be this way, then how do we get from here to there is always a big part of all this. And I think it's really important that we, lay out what we're talking about as far as how do we get to this better world. Well, it starts with demands. You need to be demanding a better world. You need to be demanding things like utilities that actually serve us, not the billionaires, healthcare that actually keeps us healthy, not just gets the investors and the billionaires rich, and it starts there with the demand, and what it needs to come to is it really comes down to numbers. The way this thing gets anywhere is we need that mass movement based on clear demands with a strong focus on corruption, which is a key part of this. We had the story earlier today about Thomas Massie, and there are some things I like about Massie, but I just have to keep saying about it, dude, you're a member in good standing of a corrupt party, the Republican Party, whether it's the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. Leave that party, start something independent, something separate, something that calls out the corruption. And, maybe then he can be a leader, be a significant part, I would say, of that kind of a mass movement with those clear demands, with that focus on corruption. Regardless of what someone like Thomas Massie does, it's up to us, right? To do like Sabrina's doing, to make that clear point that, it's about the money, it's about the corruption, keep coming back to that. And if we can get that kind of thinking out there enough and become a mass movement, that's, that could really get somewhere, but it's going to need that kind of focus. If you like the sound of that, you can check out more at the old 11demands.org. There's the 11 Demands Collective, which is about kind of committing to yourself to be thinking in this way and to spreading the word. And there's 11 Demands Substack, where we get a post out there once in a while talking about these things. So we can have a better world, but we're going to have to figure out how to work together to get there and be clear about what we want. All right. I see NY Varsity Sports here giving me the good support. All right, NY Varsity Sports, Jason, appreciate it. Oop, there we go. Now, and we got some super chats built up. Let's see, we got In the Queues, goes back a couple stories. Shout out to Cynthia here for the super sticker. Always appreciate those. And thanks for the super chat, Jay Swiss, who says it's impossible to be a Democrat and a follower of, it says, it's impossible to be a Democrat and a follower of Yeshua at the same time. Democrat policies don't align well with Scripture. I mean, I would just, if you're asking me personally, or I would suspect Sabrina would say the same thing, it's uniparty policy. It's billionaire policy. It doesn't align well with being a good person, being what tends to be put out there as the Jesus message, love the fellow man. You just really can't have that and have billionaires. It's time to choose. Choose between the billionaires and the rest of us. And thanks for the super chat, Wanda USA, who says Massie, MTG, Tucker, and Candace equal MAGA. I think he means the real MAGA. And Trump and Hegseth equals MIGA, which is the term they put out there for Make Israel Great Again. I mean, I just want to see the billionaires put in with that, right? The corrupt system. We need a politics that's in opposition to that, is the kind of refinement I might put on to those kind of statements. Not that I necessarily disagree, but I think we really need to connect the dots, right? Dig down to the core issues, and the core is always, the money and the corruption. And also, thanks for the super chat, Jay Swiss. It's all political theater. They're all bought and mostly related. People really think Hillary hates her cousin Donald. Even Barack and Dick are cousins, two dirty wings of the same dirty bird. I hear you. And, we need to start with that and then move on to what we're going to do about it. It can, what I would say is that is getting to the MC part of MCDS, right? Money, corruption, demand, solutions. The money and the corruption, it's a uniparty, right? So we need to not be caught up in those fights between red and blue and whatnot. Then we need to have those clear demands and clean it up, the corruption, and the solutions flow from those demands. If you want to see specifics on those solutions in the 11 demands list, which is easily accessible here. Number one is about fix that big money in politics, and you have clear ways of doing that. It starts with demands, and it gets somewhere when we get a mass movement, really calling for those and not settling for less. See what else we got here in the queue. We got Kevin Wayne saying with the super chat. Thanks for the super chat. He says Dolly Parton extreme plastic surgery. Okay, and thanks for the super chat. Sammy, he says to hell with Oprah. I hear you. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's hard when there's a story like that, and with when you see something like that with Oprah, because frankly, it gets hard to be civil about what that kind of showed with that kind of a person. Thanks for the super sticker, Sean. Appreciate that. And thanks for this one, Sammy. You said Michael had a big heart. Oprah has no heart. I'd have to agree with that one. And thanks for the super chat, Kevin Wayne says Michael physically great shape for London shows. I'm talking about Michael at the end there. Hear you. All right, and I think we have a couple here in the Rumbles. Let me check on what we got going on over there. Let me just do a couple of clicks, and they magically appear, right? Thanks for this Rumble rant from Active Guardian, who says, you must drink either Coke or Pepsi. You must drink the 45 grams of sugar and caramel coloring. Wanting lemonade with stevia is childish. Wanting water hurts democracy. I hear you. And we got one more, at least here, I think down here in the queue. There it is. Thanks for this Rumble rant from Mary Poppins, who says, Oprah asked Dolly Parton about her boobs and kept pressing her on how people perceived her because of them. And Dolly also pushed back. I should hope so. Yeah, I mean, I thought, one thing I noticed just watching that interview is I thought Michael Jackson, really acquitted himself pretty well. Oh, we got more in the Rumble rant. In terms of pushing back what Oprah was going on. And of course, Winfrey was just going, trying to get something sensational out of the interview. Let me just line up another one here. Here we go. Thanks for this Rumble rant, Mr. or Mrs., I'll say them, Hempcar, who says, let me get my scroll set up here, right? All right. Who says, Isaac Cappy said Oprah promoted John of God, who was later busted for trafficking kids. Rose McGowan said Oprah's as fake as they come. Dick Gregory said MJ was killed with a laser. I don't think we would know about that, but we can look into. And thanks also for this one, Hempcar, who says Michael Jackson also wrote a song called Don't Cry Palestine, but it was never made. Cappy said Michael Jackson hated Steven Spielberg. Well, there you go. And thanks also for this one, Hempcar. Strange, Michael Jackson said in the original version of They Don't Care About Us how he used the slur for Jewish people. Kick me, don't you black and white me. Okay. I hear you. I think that'll do it for us in the Rumble rant and our super chats. Well, actually, I had one other super chat that actually that touched on. There was an earlier story, or actually, was it a super chat or regular chat? And we like to highlight some of the regular chats too, if they're good, right? This one from John Teach Hermano. Who said, Dear Sabby, I empathize with your frustration with property tax, but I don't think that is a left-wing take. Property tax is fair and social. They should be thankful to be able to own, again, not left. And one of the things I always like to point out about taxes is that it's really important to focus on who pays and how much they're paying, and less so on the tax itself. Well, firstly, it's important to realize that the taxes, the purpose of taxes, right, is not really to fund things. It works that way at the state municipal level, and that's a policy choice. It doesn't have to work that way, but it's. Oh, we got a phone going off here, but we can. All right. Yeah. So. All right. So back to taxes. So with property taxes, it's the purpose of the taxes are to cycle the money back in more than to fund things. We don't have to, even at the state municipal level, have the taxes fund things. We could have public banks at the state municipal level and actually generate the money needed. You know, the point is that the system, there's no shortage of money. I'll put it that way. If you look at on the 11 Demands, there's an article from the 11 Demands Substack that gets into this. Let me give that a little highlight here. Yeah, so if you go on 11demands.org, there's scroll down a little bit, you get into 11 Demands Substack. One of the articles is several highlighted here, which I'd recommend if you want to see what 11 Demands is about and dig in a little deeper. They're not very long articles. They're actually pretty short, easy reads. There's one called Why You Should Avoid the Phrase Taxpayer Dollars, and it kind of gets into this, what are taxes for. The point is, you can't just not have taxes because the money has to get cycled back in. There's this concept of currency issuers and currency users. The government, in our system at the federal level, the federal government and banks can do this to some extent too. They create money. You know, literally, the government literally does. And this can sound almost kind of crazy, but the government literally does create money out of thin air. Congress passes a law that does appropriations, and that money gets created and directed towards the government programs. The rest of us and our currency users, and that. So being the currency issuer is very powerful. The thing is, you can't just keep issuing currency. You have to cycle it back in. So how do you cycle it back in? Well, you have to tax. So it's really a question of who pays those taxes and how much. And so what I'm really getting at here is that the tax system doesn't have to work this way. The tax system is set up to be very complicated, and it basically to shift the tax burden from that top 0.1%, the billionaire class, to the working class. That's really what a lot of all that nonsense is about. They make it complicated so you don't see it as easily. What would a better tax system look like? Well, funny you should ask. In the 11 Demands, there's taxation is talked about. And if you click through here, the 11 Demands, excuse me, number 10, revamp taxation and funding. We could, and this is having a strong demand, dialing your demand up to 11, we could have a system where we essentially abolish all taxes except for highly progressive income taxes, wealth taxes, and taxes on large corporations. And what this gets into is shifting the tax the tax burden from us, the 99%, and more on to the people who have the money, the billionaires, the mega corporations, which are basically the same thing. Billionaires own those corporations. We could have a tax system that works that way. So when we talk about, for property taxes, I think it's a mistake to talk about it in terms of should we have property taxes or not have property taxes. I think it's a question of which kind of property owners are we talking about. If we're talking about just average people who happen to own a bit of property, I think their taxes on that property should, I think it makes sense to have their taxes be relatively minimal. While if you're talking about huge corporations, billionaires, who have huge holdings and use those as renters to bring in a whole bunch of money and make billions off of that, I think they should be taxed highly. So let's jack up. So the way you can work it is if you're just someone who just owns a bit of land and a house or something, near zero property taxes on you. If you're a huge billionaire, mega corporation landlord buying up everybody's houses, jack up those taxes up high. So it's not about whether or not you have property taxes, it's about what they look like and who pays, how much do they pay. The same with the income taxes. You can't, really the fairest tax I would submit is a progressive income tax. If you're making a lot of money, then it makes sense to, and by a lot, I mean when you start getting into millions and billions, it makes sense to have high tax rates on those people and those entities. If you're just a working person, especially if you're a poor person, your income tax should be zero. If you're a regular working person, we'd have to work out what exactly those numbers should look like, but, really pretty small. If you're a billionaire, then your taxes should be more like 90% or higher. That's what highly progressive income tax looks like. The other thing is wealth taxes is a big thing. If you have the billionaires in a huge class who have this huge amount of wealth and property and whatnot, that should also be taxed directly, because we got a real problem with billionaires and their wealth and everything they hold. And wealth taxes are a way to even that out. It's about wealth distribution back down to the 99%. So anyways, there's that. There's more in 11 demands, on the tax system, about how we use it. You would talk about loopholes. You would talk about enforcement. You can talk about public banks, in terms of how we do funding. The bottom line, with taxes and money is issue federal currency to promote the public good, not for private profits. That's really the summary ending one. Anyways, I just wanted to do that little bit of conversation about taxes because the subject did come up on the show. But otherwise, I think that's going to do us for tonight. You can catch Sabby and this live show next on Sunday. If it's Thursday, that'll be Sunday at 5 p.m. Because we're back in the swing of the live shows. You can see what we got for you then. We can see what news is broken. There's always something to cover. You can catch some of the stuff I've been talking about and more and that we talk about on the show at the old 11demands.org. But until then, I'm going to close it with what Sabby always says, to have a good night, keep up the fight. I always say it one way or another, but I will see you soon. Thanks for everyone for watching and for watching Sabs and even listening a bit to me, Eric T. Red. Hopefully entertained you for a minute. We'll catch you next time. Thanks and peace. See ya.